Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. If any of you are new to the channel, then subscribe immediately and also give me any suggestions for new content or new videos. Bring in the movie called What If Peter Parker 616 was Isakai and became symbiote monarch. Link down in description of the fanfiction This What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. This What If is a crossover of Marvel 616. My status as an assassin obviously exceeds the heroes and solo leveling. Chapter 1. A new world, a new life. The facade of normalcy was the most oppressive part. After the Civil War, after the betrayal, after Aunt May's blood had stained his hands in a way no super villain ever could, the world had simply moved on. But for Peter Parker, nothing was normal. It was a waking nightmare, and Midtown High was its grinding, monotonous heart. He sat alone in the cafeteria, the noise a dull roar around him. He didn't hear the specific insults anymore, just the tone, mocking, derisive. Flash Thompson and his goons held court a few tables over, their laughter sharp and aimed in his direction. And MJ was right there with them, laughing along, her hand resting on Flash's arm. Peter's eyes, once bright with a quirky intelligence, were now cold, flat pools behind his glasses. He didn't look up from his book, his chewing methodical, his silence a fortress. Then, his phone glitched. The screen fractured into digital static. A low hum vibrated through the very air, making the fillings in his teeth ache. What the hell's going on? Flash's voice cut through the sudden unease. How the hell should I know? One of his friends retorted. The world outside the windows began to warp, the blue sky twisting into a kaleidoscope of impossible colors. Panic erupted. Peter finally looked up, his analytical mind kicking in despite the chaos. His eyes were drawn to a point in the center of the cafeteria floor, where a complex, glowing summoning circle materialized, burning its pattern into the linoleum. Light erupted, and the last thing he felt was a violent, gut-wrenching lurch. When his senses returned, he was standing on cold, polished stone in a grand, throne-lined hall. He was surrounded by the frantic babble of his classmates, but his attention was immediately seized by the other figures pulled into this disaster. The Avengers, in all their polished, self-assured glory, Iron Man, Captain America, Hawkeye, a scowling Hulk, a bemused Thor, Falcon, War Machine, Captain Marvel, Black Widow, Hank Pym, the Vision, the Wasp, and Black Panther. The Fantastic Four, Reed Richards already scrutinizing the architecture, Sue Storm shielding a nervous Johnny, and Ben Grimm cracking his rocky knuckles. The X-Men, Cyclops trying to establish order, Rogue looking wary, Emma Frost impossibly pristine, Gambit leaning on his staff, Jean Grey, Beast, Wolverine sniffing the air with a grimace, Nightcrawler, and Storm. Peter didn't say a word. He simply took a measured step back, melting into the periphery, his posture screaming to be left alone. The memories flashed, unbidden, the sting of Tony's betrayal, the thunderous reveal of his identity, the sound of the gunshot, Aunt May's pale face. An elderly man in royal robes cleared his throat. His Majesty the King will speak. The King, a man with a kind face that didn't quite reach his eyes, addressed them. Heroes from a distant world, you have been summoned. Our world, Morgan, is threatened by a demonic invasion. The prophecy states that only champions from another realm can defeat the demon lord. Thor looked amazed, stroking his beard. Tony Stark, however, puffed out his chest. Well, have no fear. You've got Earth's mightiest heroes on the job. Taking down a demon army. All in a day's work, Tony said, his arrogance echoing in the vast hall. Hawkeye nodded. Yeah, piece of cake. A cold, familiar fury ignited behind Peter's eyes. The same old song and dance. The posturing. The blind assurance. His classmates, predictably, erupted in cheers for their saviors. Now then, the King continued, to bestow upon you the blessings of our world and gauge your potential, please place your hand upon this orb of revelation. Iron Man went first, placing a gauntleted hand on the crystal orb. It glowed, and text shimmered in the air, Tony Stark. Class, Artificer Warlord. Level, 1, asterisk. One by one, the others followed. Clint Barton became a level 1 hunter. Steve Rogers a level 1 paladin. Then it was the student's turn. Flash Thompson swaggered up, placed his hand on the orb, and preened as he was granted the hero class, level 1. What a bummer, Flash muttered, stepping away. I thought I'd get a way higher level than that. This is a farce, Peter thought. As the others obsessed over their new stat sheets, his eyes, sharpened by years of combat and science, caught a glint of light in a high corner of the hall. A security camera, artfully disguised behind a gargoyle's head. His new HUD-like interface, a remnant of his own tech fused with this world's system, flickered to life, analyzing the feed. Stealth level, max. Ability, shadow melt activated. He willed himself to vanish, the light bending around him. He was a ghost. No one noticed. Not the arrogant heroes, not his self-absorbed classmates. But one person did. A knight with hazelnut brown hair, his armor more practical than ceremonial, watched the spot where Peter had been with a flicker of intense amusement. In the silent solitude of the messy quarters assigned to him, Peter finally breathed. He looked out the window at the twin moons of this strange, alien world. It was time. He opened a hidden compartment in his bag, pulling out his creation. It wasn't spandex. It was a suit of reinforced, dark gray fabric, interwoven with his own rudimentary nanites. A black, hooded cloak treated to muffle sound. A sleek, faceless helm. A long, gray scarf. He dressed methodically, the familiar weight of responsibility replaced by the liberating weight of purpose. He looked in the mirror. A stranger stared back, a specter of vengeance and freedom. Not bad, he whispered, the sound flat in the quiet room. Call myself Shadow Assassin. He slipped out into the corridors, a phantom in the castle's veins. His enhanced hearing picked up voices from a chamber the guests were never meant to find. How are the brats and the so-called arrogant heroes doing? A voice sneered. It was the king's, but stripped of its false benevolence. They are simply children from a world without magic. Arrogant, but predictable. There is nothing to worry about, a younger woman's voice replied, the princess. Good. Proceed with the plan. Peter's hand went to the hilt of the practice sword he'd been given, his knuckles white. I knew you were up to no good. He was about to draw it, to confront them then and there, but discipline held him. Information was a weapon. He melted back into the shadows just as the king turned, sensing a presence but finding only empty air. Later, invisible, he watched his classmates debate in the mess hall. We have to get stronger while we're here, one of them, Matt, was saying. And we should use that power to help the people of this world. Flash laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Naive, much. Being a hero means showing the weak their place. It means making them fear you. That's real power. Steve Rogers looked on, his face a mask of profound disappointment. Peter, invisible and eating a piece of bread, looked at Flash with pure disgust. A man given power only to look down on others. Not a hero. A thug. Training began the next day. The Knight Commander, a woman named Sandra Mithrail, and her bespectacled subordinate, Gale, oversaw the proceedings. As Gale began drilling the basics, Sandra's eyes scanned the crowd, her gaze lingering for a moment on Peter before she ordered Gale to take over. She had felt his potential, a silent tremor of power amidst the noisy novices. She found him later, by chance or fate, near the castle walls. He didn't speak at first, but something in her demeanor, a lack of the arrogance he despised, made him lower his guard. He told her everything. The civil war, the identity reveal, the assassin's bullet, the public's hatred, the weight of a mantle he never wanted. Saran Mithrail listened, not with pity, but with understanding. She saw the fire in him, banked but not extinguished. And she was amused, and intrigued. Then let us hone that edge, she said. In secret, she became his mentor. He learned swordsmanship, not as a brutish skill, but as an art of precision and lethality. He integrated his superhuman agility and strength with new, devastating martial arts forms. His body and spirit, broken by his old world, were being reforged in this new one. A parade was held for the summoned heroes. The streets of the capital were lined with cheering citizens, celebrating Iron Man, Captain America, and the Fantastic Four. Peter lingered in the back, his hood up, a shadow on the periphery. A figure stepped from an alley, a hooded girl with knowing eyes. You were summoned here, with the so-called heroes. Peter tensed. Sorry, I don't. Then let us meet again when you do, she said, vanishing as quickly as she appeared. The first true test came in a dungeon, a foul, damp place reeking of rot. The moment the first centaur monsters charged, the hero's bravado shattered. Flash and his goons were quickly overwhelmed, their hero classes meaning nothing without skill. Hawkeye's arrows bounced off thick hides. Iron Man's repulsors were ineffective in the cramped, magically charged space. They were humiliated. But Peter moved like liquid night. He didn't fight, he flowed. He ducked under swinging axes, his body a blur. He didn't web his foes to walls. He targeted tendons, joints, and throats with brutal efficiency, his practice sword a deadly instrument in his hands. He moved through the horde like a scythe through wheat. Saran Mithrael, fighting back to back with him, couldn't help a fierce, proud smile. Well done, Peter. From the sidelines, a battered Iron Man watched, a nagging familiarity scratching at his mind. Those movements, that agility. Flash just stared, his jealousy of physical pain. Nearby, Johnny Storm gaped. Who is that guy? Peter Parker, the shadow assassin, didn't hear them. He was finally, truly, free. And his work had only just begun. Chapter 2, Betrayed and Framed Again. A wave of exhaustion washed over Peter as the last vestiges of his shadow spell dissipated. The power had been immense, but it had taken a visible toll on his body. Across from him, the Knight Commander offered a grateful smile. Peter, his mask and night vision goggles still in place, turned slowly. Is everyone all right? Yeah, the Knight Commander replied, his voice full of relief. And it's all because of you. Sometime later, back from the dungeon, Saran Mithrael praised Peter's efforts. Your work was outstanding. You saved our lives back there. You're the one who helped me wrangle my magic and get stronger, Peter countered. To be honest, I never heard of a shadow magic bonus skill before. It is incredibly powerful, difficult to control, and drains your energy drastically, Saran explained gravely. On that note, don't use it unless you truly must. Yeah, I'll keep that in mind, Peter promised. In that case, I brought you this. Saran handed him a weapon. Peter's eyes widened at the sight of a sleek, black katana. It was unmistakably Japanese in design, and he found he could read the inscription on it perfectly. If the hero cared about such things, the king would take notice, Saran warned. I can see why that would be an issue, Peter agreed. Well, I kind of stole it from the royal armory, Saran admitted. Peter was stunned, but as he held the blade, it felt perfect in his hands. I accept. Speaking of the hero, Saran began. All right. The curse afflicting him is vicious, Peter said, remembering his classmate's deteriorating condition. He recalled how, thanks to his sneaking skill, he had managed to surprise the guards, steal the purification crystal, and deliver it to Saran. The next day, a crowd had gathered in the town square. Curious, Peter pushed his way through until he saw it, Saran's lifeless body on the ground, a dagger protruding from his chest. Peter froze, then dashed past the knights and knelt in shock. The world seemed to narrow to the sight of the dagger and his fallen mentor. I don't get it. Who did this? He whispered. Why don't you do us a favor and cut the act, Parker? Flash Thompson's voice cut through the silence. Peter looked up in horror. He was surrounded by a gallery of accusing faces. Iron Man, War Machine, Namor, Mr. Fantastic, Flash and his goons, Ms. Marvel, Miles Morales, Silk, Charles Xavier, and Cyclops, all staring at him with disgust. Do you not recognize the dagger? Flash spat angrily. You should, because it's yours. Peter was confused for a moment before the memory surfaced. Nonsense. Think back, you know my dagger was shattered in the... He was cut off by Flash's cronies. I knew you were suspicious all along. One yelled. You go missing for a while and then conveniently show up for training, and then he's murdered. Shouted another. You know, kid, Tony Stark said, his voice dripping with condescension, for someone like you, I never expected you to murder a knight. Who would have thought he could do something so horrible? Hank Pym added. A cold realization dawned on Peter. Did the princess curse them as well? Suddenly, a new voice intervened. I've heard enough. You can't just accuse him of murder. That goes for all of you. It was Matt. Oh, really? And why not? Flash challenged. Just then, the king arrived. For the sin of killing a knight, you will receive the penalty of death, he proclaimed. From behind her father, the princess allowed herself a small, triumphant smile. As the knights moved to seize him, Peter vanished, using his skills to disappear into the crowd. Iron Man tried to use his sensors, but thanks to Peter's prior tampering with the suit, they failed. Peter fled, grabbing his stored money and escaping the kingdom just before the Knight Commander with glasses could mobilize the king's personal assassins. Alone and on the run, Peter vowed to grow stronger no matter the cost. It was bad enough he had been betrayed before in his old life, but now it had happened again in this new world. The Parker luck had followed him across the universe. Back at the castle, the king smiled. With the convenient scapegoat gone, he could now move forward with his plans for war. His puppets, naive Avengers like Iron Man, Hawkeye, War Machine, Namor, Captain Marvel, She-Hulk, Cyclops, Mr. Fantastic, and the Human Torch, none the wiser. Peter trained relentlessly. He pushed himself non-stop, clearing dungeon floors and slaughtering monsters left and right. After defeating a lion with a serpent's tail, he felt a surge of power and collapsed, unconscious. When he finally awoke, he checked his status and was stunned. Level 57. HP drastically increased. Hey, I guess fighting stronger monsters paid off. Count me lucky, he muttered to himself. His moment of reflection was interrupted when he noticed something inside a slime he had just killed. To his shock, it was an unconscious elf girl with white hair and a beautiful figure. He knelt beside her and, on instinct, almost activated his World Eye skill to appraise her. But he aborted it, the feeling of the skill's dangerous potential too strong. It was still only level 1. The elf girl slowly stirred, regaining consciousness. "You're not injured, are you?" Peter asked. "No, I'm okay," she replied weakly. "You mean it? You're not just saying that." He pressed, noticing her dwindling HP bar. The elf girl looked at him, confused. "Forget it." She looked around, disoriented. "Where am I?" "Floor 75 of the Campident Labyrinth," Peter answered. "I see. So, what are you doing here?" she asked, her eyes flickering to where his name would be displayed. "I'm trying to level up. I already know you saw my name, but we should still introduce ourselves properly," Peter said. But before she could respond, she collapsed again, a fever burning through her. Sometime later, after Peter had made hot food and nursed her, the elf girl was grateful. As they explored the dungeon together, they soon faced the floor's boss, a dark blue dragon-like creature. The elf girl watched, amazed by Peter's power as he engaged it. But just as Peter seemed to gain the upper hand, the dragon's body began to glow with an intense, building light. "What the?" Peter managed, his eyes widening as everything was engulfed in a blinding, brilliant radiance. Chapter 3, Befriending a Demon Cat. The blinding light from the dragon faded, shrinking down until it revealed not a beast, but a small, black, cat-like creature, looking thoroughly embarrassed as it lay in a pile of its own former scales. "How shameful," the demon cat muttered. "To be felled by a bunch of novices." Peter and the elf girl stared in stunned silence. "Well, I thought turning into a dragon would be cool," the cat grumbled, licking a paw. "But I guess I might have taken it a bit too far." "Hold on a second," Peter said, his grip tightening on his katana. "Bosses can't talk." "I am no mere monster, driven by base instincts," the cat retorted, lifting its head with a haughty air. "I might tell you that the great demon lord saw fit to grant me doubt, instincts, and ample intelligence when he created me." Peter watched the cat drag on about its own intellect. "I'm Peter. This is Amelia Rose Quartz," he said, gesturing to the elf girl. "I know her type well," the cat sniffed. "I can tolerate the elf," Peter replied dryly. "What a brat. Anyone alive for centuries would know that." "That's some big talk coming from a kitten," Peter shot back, analyzing the creature with a practiced eye. "But you're in a bad way. Admit it. You're too hurt to move." He raised his dagger, ready to strike. The demon cat seemed unamused by the threat. "Do as you wish. However, I have one request. I wish to give you a message from the demon lord." This got Peter's full attention. "What message?" he said. "I want you to join me at the volcano, in the land of the demons. I will await your arrival at my castle deep within. That is all." Peter's mind reeled. What the hell? How does the demon lord know about me? And how would he know to find me here of all places? "I do not know. The inner workings of his brilliant mind are beyond me," the cat said, laying its head down. "Now my duty is done. You may kill me." Peter hesitated. Instead of striking, he reached out, touching the cat's forehead and plunging into its memories. He saw its creation, the demon lord's command, and its solitary existence. When he pulled back, he found a nearby teleportation circle. "Great, what are you doing here?" the cat asked, confused. "Let's go," Peter said, deciding on a whim. The trio, Peter, Amelia, and the demon cat, activated the circle and vanished. A strange sense of happiness bloomed in Peter's chest. Sure, his luck had always been terrible in the old world 616, but now, in this new world, with an elf and a demon cat by his side, he finally felt a flicker of hope. Meanwhile, in a port city with a distinct Japanese aesthetic, the group that believed in Peter gathered. Matt, Mason Briggs, Anya, Deadpool, Spider-Gwen, Captain America, and Moon Knight stood in silence, taking in the pagodas and torii gates. "Holy crap, can you believe this guy?" Deadpool exclaimed, pointing at the architecture. "We're in another world and it's got Japanese stuff. How peculiar." "Huh. Unbelievable," Moon Knight grunted. "It's almost like we've been thrown back into the past," Captain America mused. "I know," Anya added. "It's also so amazing at the same time." After a moment to relax, Matt called them to order. "Now, let's get down to business. Our funds are low. They'll soon be gone if we don't find work quickly." "Well, we could be adventurers," Deadpool suggested. "You know, take on jobs if we register at the guild." "Perfect," Matt agreed. He then grew serious. "We're all in the dark about why we were summoned here. But I believe the fastest way to get back home is to defeat the Demon Lord." Briggs frowned. "And what makes you say that? It was the king and princess who summoned us. They should know how to send us back." "Will they, though?" Matt countered. "The rest of our class is stuck in the royal palace, being pampered as heroes. I don't trust the king's motives." "That's right," Anya said. "We need money and information. Once we have that, we'll head to the demon continent right away." "But first," Briggs interjected, "we need to meet up with Peter. If we stay put, my intuition tells me he's bound to come here. He's far more powerful than any of us. It would be foolish to face the Demon Lord without him." On the sidelines, Gwen remembered how Peter had trained her, and felt a pang of guilt for not believing in him during the Superior Spider-Man event in the Civil War. "I agree strongly," Anya said. "Me too," Deadpool chimed in. "After all, me and him are, like, best buddies." The group, though skeptical of some details, unanimously agreed to trust in Peter and began their training, hoping their friend would soon arrive. The teleportation circle deposited Peter, Amelia, and the demon cat in a sun-dappled, ancient forest. "This is the forest constant," the demon cat announced. "The land of the elves." Amelia's face paled, her heart sinking. "Oh my god, why here? I didn't want to return yet." Peter noticed her fright. But before he could ask why, an arrow whizzed past his head, embedding itself in a tree. In an instant, they were surrounded by a contingent of elven guards. "All of you will face punishment for the sins you have committed in the name of the Child of Light," a voice rang out. A haughty elf, who bore a striking resemblance to Amelia, stepped forward. "My dear sister, Amelia Rose Quartz, was driven out of elven territory for a reason. She is an elf, an outcast." "Kilika," Amelia whispered, her voice trembling. The younger sister, Kiwi, continued. "By the authority of Akira Rose Quartz, Kilika will now claim these pages you stole." Peter listened, understanding this was a family feud. But as Kiwi raised her hand, ready to order her sister's execution, he knew this had gone too far. Killing her own sister, her own flesh and blood. Now that was going too far. His hand fell to the hilt of his black katana. He wouldn't let it happen. Chapter 4, The Unraveling Web. The tension in the forest constant was a physical weight, pressing down on the clearing where Peter, Amelia, and the demon cat stood surrounded. Kiwa's triumphant smirk was a blade aimed at her sister's heart. "Behold her work," Kiwa announced to the elven guards, her voice dripping with false sorrow. She gestured to a faint, silvery scar on her arm. "My own sister gave me this." She presented a poison, calling it a healing potion. A murmur of disgust rippled through the elves. "How awful," one cried out. "The child of blight," another shouted. Amelia flinched as if struck. "I did not. It was a healing potion, truly." Kiwa's eyes widened in a perfect performance of wounded virtue. "Are you accusing me," she said, her voice trembling with feigned hurt, "of deceiving everyone?" Amelia's gaze fell to the forest floor, her spirit breaking under the weight of the lie. Peter watched, his jaw tight. This was more than simple sibling rivalry, the venom in Kiwa's voice was real. She genuinely wanted her sister erased. And there you have it, Kiwa concluded, her tone shifting back to cold authority. She turned her attention to Peter, a predatory gleam in her eye. I do gratitude you for bringing the fugitive back. She took a step closer. Human, you mustn't look her in the eyes. Peter, stop. Amelia cried out, true panic in her voice. You mustn't look into her eyes. But it was too late. Kiwa's gaze locked with Peter's, and he felt a subtle, foreign pressure push against his mind, a hypnosis spell trying to sink its hooks in. It slithered against his consciousness, and found no purchase. His mental defenses, forged by a life of psychic threats and his own latent spider sense, were an impenetrable fortress. The spell shattered. A flicker of shock crossed Kiwa's face before she could mask it. However, you didn't, she began, but her words were cut off by a powerful new presence. Kiwa, explain the meaning of this spectacle. The Elf King, Akira Rose Quartz, emerged from the trees, his expression thunderous. The guards immediately fell to one knee. The king listened as the elves, their wills subtly bent by Kiwa's magic, unanimously accused Princess Amelia of the crime. Peter's senses screamed at him. They weren't just lying, they were compelled. The puppet master wasn't the accused, but the accuser. You may begin, the king declared, his eyes heavy with a grief Peter didn't yet understand. A duel. My daughter, Kiwa, versus the human, Peter. Let the truth be shown in combat. The duel was a one-sided display, but not in the way the elves expected. Kiwa, reputed as one of the elves' best warriors, was a whirlwind of elegant, deadly strikes. But Peter was a ghost. He flowed around her attacks, every dodge a whisper, every parry a minimal, efficient movement. He wasn't just using his physical prowess, a remnant of his spider sense, a faint psychic echo, tingled at the base of his skull, warning him of each blow a split second before it landed. Her reputation is well earned, I see, Peter remarked, not even breathing heavily. I have nothing left to lose anymore. You, dear sister, took it all. How come I look different than you? Kiwa snarled, her composure fracturing under his calm defense. Your hair color is beautiful. I'm so envious. The words were a twisted compliment, revealing a lifetime of bitter jealousy. But Peter knew the truth went deeper than envy. Something was fundamentally wrong here. So strongly wrong. As Kiwa gathered her magic for a final, desperate attack, a strange energy flared around Peter. A shard of darkness, like a splinter from the world's oldest tree, materialized in his hand. What's happening? An elf gasped. A branch of the holy tree. A shadow element buff. I believe not. Then what is it? Peter didn't understand it himself. This shadow was a part of this world, a power he had unconsciously drawn upon. He used it now, not to strike, but to bind, enveloping Kiwa in tendrils of darkness that neutralized her magic and held her fast. The Elf King stepped forward, his face a mask of profound pain. "QA, listen up," he said, his voice resonating with ancient power. "There were plenty who could see your deception before this. You lied to them." He placed a hand on Kiwa's forehead. "You came to laugh at my failure," Kiwa whimpered, her defiance crumbling. "Is it possible?" The king murmured. "I know very well, you ran back to her the moment you awakened and helped her free herself from my control." He was not speaking to the Kiwa before him, but to the darkness festering within her. "Stop patronizing me. Just tell me what my punishment is already. Exile. Or execution." The king's shoulders slumped. "If anyone deserves punishment, it is I." He focused his power, and a soft light enveloped Kiwa. "I failed to see the corruption in your heart, and in my neglect, I allowed this jealousy to fester. I give you back the memories I tried to shield you from, the truth." As the light faded, Kiwa's eyes cleared. The haughty, cruel mask melted away, replaced by a wave of horror and shame as she remembered everything, the true nature of her scar, her own manipulations, and the depth of her betrayal. She looked at Amelia, and for the first time, saw not a rival, but her sister. "No one works harder than you," the king said softly to Amelia, his voice thick with regret. "I see that now." With the web of lies unraveled, Peter turned to his demon cat guide. "We're going to the beastfolk continent." The cat flicked its tail. "A logical choice. It's the perfect place to go for one of your unique talents. Don't call me human, or this gal, either, Peter said, a hint of his dry humor returning. Go on. I want to hear my name. The cat sighed, a sound like grinding gravel. Very well, Peter. As they prepared to leave, a strange, unspoken understanding passed between Peter and Amelia, a bond forged in a crucible of conflict, a confession of loyalty that ran deeper than words. Meanwhile, aboard a ship cutting through turquoise waves, Matt, Briggs, and the others felt a familiar pull. The Beastfolk Kingdom, Briggs stated, his intuition flaring. We need to get stronger, and that's the place to do it. He looked out at the horizon, a certainty settling in his bones. And I'm getting a feeling, a strong one. Peter will be there. An unexpected reunion was on the horizon, and for the first time since being torn from their world, the scattered heroes felt the threads of fate beginning to draw them back together. Chapter 5, The Shadow Assassin. The carriage ride away from the elven forests was a quiet affair. Peter watched the landscape shift, his mind circling a single, persistent question: why did the demon lord seek him out? He was no hero summoned by a king, he was an accident, a stray piece from a broken world. What possible use could a being of such power have for him? His musings were cut short as the carriage jolted to a halt. A band of thugs, armed with crude axes and hungry eyes, emerged from the tree line, demanding tolls and treasures. They didn't get a single coin. Before their leader could finish his threat, Peter was a blur of motion. He moved with a brutal, dispassionate efficiency that was a world away from the acrobatic flair of his past life. There were no quips, no webs, only precise, disabling strikes. In seconds, the thugs lay groaning in the dirt, their weapons scattered. One of the elves traveling with them stared, wide-eyed. By the Grim Lord, that's the technique of the Peacemen's Union, the Royal Guard of Grim itself. Peter paid the comment little mind. He had already dismissed the thugs as a minor nuisance. To him, the so-called nobles who likely employed such bandits were nothing more than spoiled children playing at power. Soon, the carriage reached a bustling port city, and their journey continued by ship. As they set sail, Peter found a quiet spot on the deck, a weathered book on beastfolk customs in his hands. He admired the vast, untamed ocean, a sight that still held a strange novelty. Amelia, meanwhile, was practically vibrating with excitement. Peter, this is my first time traveling on a ship, she said, twirling to take in the endless blue horizon. She turned, expecting to share the moment with him, only to find him engrossed in his book. Rick, he said, not looking up from the page. Can't you tell I'm reading? His tone was utterly neutral. You even thought we were on a cruise. Amelia retorted, her hands on her hips. He might have asked if he wanted anything before we said goodbye, Peter remarked dryly, referring to the Elf King. Amelia's face flushed with annoyance. I said, you are such a dummy, Peter. She pouted. I see, Peter replied, turning a page, completely unfazed by the insult. After a smooth voyage, they arrived at the Beastman's territory. The air was different here, earthy, wild, and charged with a primal energy. As they made their way from the docks into the main town, a group of hulking Beastman thugs, emboldened by drink, noticed Amelia and decided to welcome her in the most unpleasant way. They didn't lay a hand on her. Peter moved so fast he was little more than a shadow. There was a series of sharp cracks and sickening thuds. When the blur settled, the thugs were all on the ground, unconscious, their limbs bent at unnatural angles. It was a brutal, almost Spider-Man level of takedown, but devoid of any hero's mercy. As they walked deeper into the town, Peter noticed a palpable tension. The citizens hurried about their business, casting nervous glances at the lengthening shadows. He overheard whispers, a name spoken in fear, the Black Cat. It seemed this kingdom had its own demons. Unbeknownst to them, a hooded figure watched from a distance, her eyes widening in surprise as she tracked Peter and his elven companion. They managed to secure a room at a nearby inn and enjoyed a quiet dinner. Peter found himself genuinely admiring the food of this other world, a simple pleasure he hadn't known he could still appreciate. The next day, Peter decided his first order of business was to visit a local blacksmith. The town, however, bore scars that went beyond the need for simple repairs. As he walked, he saw flashbacks in the wary eyes of the people, memories of corrupt beastman noblemen, their greed leaving parts of the town in ruins. The destruction was not from war, but from avarice. Seeing this solidified his resolve. He needed to get stronger, and fast. The fastest way in this world, he had learned, was through its dungeons. What Peter did not realize was that the threads of fate were weaving a complex tapestry around him. The people from his old life, the ones who still believed in him, were, at that very moment, arriving in the Beast Kingdom. Their paths were converging, though he was blissfully unaware. Alone in a dark, echoing dungeon, Peter faced a horde of monstrous creatures. He moved through them, his black katana an extension of the shadows themselves. He fell, got up, and fought again. Each defeat taught him, each victory honed him. The last vestiges of his old self were being forged into something new, something harder. As he stood panting over a pile of dissipating monsters, a profound realization settled over him. The wall crawler, the web slinger, the hero who always got back up, that man was gone. Spider-Man is dead, he whispered to the oppressive silence, the words of final farewell. I am reborn. He looked at his hands, now cloaked in the same shadows that filled the dungeon. I am the shadow assassin. He had finally shed the skin of his past and fully embraced the mantle of his new destiny. The new him was born in the darkness, and he was ready to use it. Chapter 6. Demon Fight. An unexpected reunion. The alley's shadows clung to Peter like old regrets as he and the pantherkin, Leah, she'd called herself, sprinted toward the inn. The Beast Kingdom's wilds loomed beyond the town, a tangled fringe of thorn-choked forests giving way to the yawning maw of the labyrinth, an ancient dungeon carved by forgotten gods, its entrance a jagged scar in the earth, pulsing with an unnatural chill. Whispers of its horrors had reached even Peter's ears during his forge visit, endless corridors where light died and monsters feasted on the lost. But Amelia was in there, snatched by the Duke's men under cover of the raid Leah had warned of. Bait for him, the shadow ghost, who'd humbled their thugs at the docks. Peter's new gear felt like a second skin, courtesy of the smith's hurried enchantments. The black katana hummed at his hip, its edge now laced with void runes that drank light. A simple mask, ebony cloth etched with feline slits for eyes, draped over his face, paired with crude night vision goggles scavenged from some half-forgotten elven trader. They weren't stark tech, but in the gloom, they painted the world in ghostly greens, turning night into a predator's playground. Proof against the dark, the smith had grunted, hammering the final sigil. Peter didn't question it, survival didn't care for approval. Leah kept pace effortlessly, her lithe form a blur of midnight fur and coiled muscle, human in posture and poise, but with the unmistakable grace of a cat, twitching ears, a tail that lashed like a metronome of tension, claws glinting in the moonlight. No full beastman hybrid, she was elegance weaponized, a princess in exile's rags. They crested a ridge overlooking the labyrinth's mouth, where torchlight flickered like dying stars. Armored knights, beast-folk brutes in rusted plate, loyal to the corrupt duke, patrolled the perimeter, their growls carrying on the wind. There, Leah whispered, her emerald eyes narrowing. The scent trail ends at the entrance. Your elf's inside, alive. For now. She crouched low, nostrils flaring. Her skill, she'd explained in clipped tones during their run. Scent tracker, a rare beastkin gift that wove smells into maps, unerring as a bloodhound's nose. It was why she'd shadowed him from the elven woods, piecing together his path, his purpose. Everyone leaves a decent scent. Hers. It vanished like smoke at the threshold. Magic ward, probably. But that's why I know you're here, to dive in after her. Peter's jaw tightened beneath the mask. The knights numbered a dozen, second-rate villains at best, swaggering louts with axes and arrogance, guarding a prize they didn't understand. He remembered the last time he'd pushed too far, overdrawing on shadow magic in a dungeon skirmish, the world blurring to black as exhaustion claimed him. Knocked out cold, saved only by her. Leah's timely barrier, a shimmering veil that had staunched the bleed of his overtaxed veins. Thanks for the bailout back there, he'd muttered earlier, the words tasting like ash. Gratitude was a chain he didn't wear lightly. A knight barked an order, and the group shifted. That was the moment, the gap in their watch. Peter moved first, a shadow uncoiling. Leah followed, silent as sin. They struck from the flanks. Peter's katana sang through the air, disarming two before they could bellow. Leah's daggers flashed, twin strikes felling another pair with surgical precision. The knights roared, axes swinging wild, but it was over in heartbeats, bodies slumped, groaning or still, the path cleared. As the last one crumpled, Leah peeled back her hood fully, revealing the regal lines of her face, high cheekbones, a cascade of ebony hair streaked with silver, ears pierced with the subtle gold of royalty. Peter froze mid-step, goggles snapping up. Shock twisted into fury, hot and immediate. He lunged, hand clamping around her throat, not crushing, but firm, lifting her toes from the dirt. "Tell me," he growled, voice a venomous rasp through the mask, "how the hell do you know about Amelia?" Leah's eyes widened, but she didn't claw or panic. Her tail stilled, and she met his gaze steadily, breath steady despite the pressure. "I can explain. It's the scent tracker. Everyone else has a decent scent. Yours is like smoke and steel, hers like wildflowers and starlight. But it cut off at the labyrinth entrance. If you must know, that's why I tailed you. Why I know you're charging in to play hero." He held her a beat longer, shadows flickering at his fingertips, tempted to squeeze the truth out the hard way. But her pulse thrummed honest under his grip, no lies stutter. He released her, stepping back, chest heaving. "Your story's incredible. Quite a lot to swallow." A new voice cut the tension, a deep, rumbling baritone from the tree line. Knight, the grizzled lionfolk guard from the inn, emerged with a squad of his own, axes lowered but ready. Her tale checks out, Shadow Man. Princess Leah Lagoon, first of Uruk's line. Urgent missive from the capital. The demon lord himself is pulling strings, targeting your elf princess. Nobles here are puppets, dancing to infernal tunes. Leah rubbed her neck, a wry smile ghosting her lips. "Thank you, Knight. As for you, Peter, what the hell do you want from me now?" He exhaled sharply, holstering the anger like a blade. "Go on. Spill it." She straightened, regal even in the dirt. "For one, my name's Leah Lagoon. First princess of the beastfolk nation of Uruk. I received word, urgent, sealed with blood ink, that the demon lord is scheming against Princess Amelia. A ritual binding, they say, to crack open gates between worlds. I came to warn you. Why not tell me right away?" Peter snapped, goggles scanning the labyrinth's glow. "I didn't have proof. Assumptions like that. You'd dismiss me as a spy or a fool. So I investigated, shadowed the Duke's men, pieced the sense. Until all hell broke loose with the raid." Her ears flicked back, vulnerability cracking her poise. "I had to be sure." Peter's mind raced, shadows whispering temptations. Truth or trap? He closed his eyes, drawing on the nascent gift he'd glimpsed in the dungeons. A mind's probe, subtle as a spider's thread, slipping past defenses to taste intent. Images flickered, urgency, fear, a throne room ablaze with warnings. No deceit. He opened his eyes, voice level. "So it seems you're telling the truth after all." Leah blinked, tail lashing. "How?" "Barrier spirit skill," he interrupted, recalling fragments from overheard beastkin lore. "How does it work, exactly?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Regular barriers anchor to thick spots, earth, stone. But a spirit barrier. It binds to essence. Moving objects, people, even shadows, if you're clever. Great use in a scrap like this." "Prove it," he said, already turning toward the entrance. "On me." The labyrinth swallowed them whole. Its corridors twisted like veins in a dying heart, walls veined with bioluminescent fungi that cast everything in sickly blues. Peter's goggles cut the gloom, revealing traps, pressure plates rigged with dart traps, pitfalls yawning into abyss. Deeper in, the air thickened with growls, beast-headed demons, hulking brutes with horns curling like scythes, eyes glowing like embers. They guarded a central chamber, where Amelia hung suspended in chains of shadow, her face pale but defiant, a crude altar beneath her humming with infernal runes. The fight erupted in chaos. Peter blurred forward, katana cleaving the first demon's arm clean. Leah flanked, her spirit barrier shimmering into a dome that deflected a hurled spear. But numbers pressed, claws raked, fire breath scorched the air. Peter tapped his shadows, tendrils lashing out to bind and snap, but the strain built, a familiar burn in his veins. Not again. Overdraw, and he'd black out, leaving Amelia to these monsters. Then, disaster. A demon's claw shattered his guard, shadow magic faltering. From the chamber's depths, a black ooze erupted, a writhing mass, alien and hungry, latching onto his arm like liquid midnight. It crawled, seeped into pores, voice booming in his skull, "We will not allow you to kill our original host." Venom. The symbiote surged, black veins spider webbing across his skin, mask merging into a jagged maw. Power flooded him, raw, intoxicating, regeneration knitting wounds mid-battle. This bottle's over, Peter snarled, voice distorted, tendrils exploding outward to rip through a cluster of beast heads. One demon lunged, venom's appendage coiled around its throat, squeezing until bone cracked. Leah hurled a spirit barrier, containing the blast, her eyes wide. What are you? Before he could retort, the air split. A figure materialized in a swirl of brimstone, tall, horned, cloaked in crimson silk, eyes like fractured rubies. The demon lord. Even venom recoiled, a psychic prowl rippling through Peter's mind. The lesser demons scattered, cowed. Mara, the lord purred, voice silk over steel, laced with an accent Peter knew intimately, Tokyo streets, neon haze. Japanese. Entertainment at its finest. Peter tensed, venom's tendrils poised. You're, from my world. Mara chuckled, waving off the remnants of his minions. Perceptive, shadow weaver. A tourist, at first. Your Japan was a delightful diversion, ramen stalls, cherry blossoms. But then, the gates. Skies bled red, monsters poured forth. I meddled, as demons do. Until they came. 7 monarchs, fiercer than gods, stronger than I could fathom. Peter's grip tightened, symbiote pulsing. Monarchs. Beings of calamity. One of shadows, like you, necromancy's whisper, raising the dead. I sensed it in you, Peter Parker. Even as they crushed me, humbled a demon lord. Mara's gaze softened, almost wistful. Your world remade itself. Heroes fell, hunters rose. Gates everywhere, beasts beyond reckoning. Ironic, no. Me, felled by powers eclipsing my own. The words landed like blows. Peter's mind reeled, gates. Hunters. A world without avengers, swallowed by apocalypse. Venom snarled, but Mara raised a hand. Peace. You've the heart of a true hero, selfless, unyielding. Rare, these days. It was an honor, Spider-Man. The name stung, a ghost unburied. Mara vanished in smoke, leaving silence. Exhaustion claimed Peter then, venom receding as shadows claimed him. Blackout. ... He woke to warmth, herbal poultices, the scent of pine and wildflowers. A cabin, rough-hewn in the wilds, fire crackling low. Amelia knelt beside him, her touch gentle on his brow, wounds mended by her elven arts. Peter, you're safe. He sat up, shadows fading. Amelia. The door burst open. Figures piled in. Matt Murdock, cane tapping, unerring senses locked on him. Moon Knight, white cloak pristine, Khonshu's gleam in his eyes. Deadpool, bounding forward with a katana whoop. Spidey. My bestie. I thought you were dead, or worse, cancelled. Get off. Peter grunted, shoving Wade's hug away, but a reluctant smile cracked his facade. Shock followed. Captain America in the corner, shield propped, face etched with quiet storm. Gwen, Anya, Miles, his spider family, weary from the crossing. Even night loomed, arms crossed. Why are you all here? Peter demanded, voice raw. Matt stepped forward, hand on his shoulder. We never stopped looking. After the gates, everything changed. You vanished into one. We followed the trail, portals, whispers. Wish you'd talk to us, Pete. I know, Peter murmured. Wouldn't believe it. But, the demon lord. Mara. He's from our world. Defeated by monarchs, 7 of them. Gates, hunters, the works. He spilled it all. The invasion, the remade earth, his shadow monarch echo. The room stilled, faces paling. Night broke the hush. Pressing matters, indeed. No kidding, Anya quipped, though her eyes shone worried. Gwen glanced at Cap, silent sentinel. Our home, it's not coming back. Steve nodded once, steel in his gaze. We adapt, always have. Later, the others filtered out, leaving Peter and Amelia by the fire. I respected your space, he started, voice soft. After everything. She silenced him with a kiss. Not tentative, not shadowed by ghosts. True. Fierce, lips meeting his with a fire that chased away the cold. For the first time, love bloomed untainted. No Gwen's echo, no MJ's fracture. Just Amelia, real and radiant. Happiness, fragile as dawn, settled in his chest. In this broken world, it was enough. Chapter 7. Talking about the past. The fire crackled softly, casting dancing shadows across the cabin's wooden walls. Outside, the sounds of the Beast Kingdom's night creatures provided a gentle backdrop. Chirping insects, distant howls, the rustle of wind through ancient trees. Inside, the warmth of the hearth fought back the evening chill, creating a small pocket of comfort in a world that had shown Peter little of it. Amelia sat cross-legged on a worn cushion across from him, her elven features illuminated by the firelight. Her silver-gold hair cascaded over her shoulders, and her violet eyes held that same gentle curiosity he'd come to recognize, the look that said she was genuinely interested, genuinely present. Not asking questions to fill silence or satisfy morbid curiosity, but because she wanted to know him. Peter leaned back against the cabin wall, one knee drawn up, the other leg stretched toward the fire. The shadows in the corners seemed to pulse slightly, responding to his presence, but he ignored them. Right now, there was only this moment. Only her. So wait, Amelia said, tilting her head in that way that made a strand of hair fall across her cheek, let me get this straight before I misunderstand. You were a hero, a superhero, in your world. You gained your powers from some kind of spider. Peter's lips quirked beneath the shadow of his hood, which he'd pushed back upon entering. I know it might sound a bit crazy, but, yes. It's true. Crazy. Amelia's laugh was soft, melodic. Peter, I'm a high elf who can manipulate nature magic. I've seen dragons, demons, and creatures that would make your nightmares blush. A radioactive spider giving someone powers is practically mundane by comparison. That's one word for it. Peter's gaze drifted to the flames. I was bullied, picked on, a lot, like, a lot. He chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Normally I want to forget all of it. The kids at school, the teachers who looked the other way, the feeling that I was invisible unless someone wanted a target. Amelia's expression softened, but she didn't interrupt with pity. She just listened. It was a field trip that changed everything. Oscorp, this big tech company in New York. At first I thought it would be something great, you know. Actually getting to learn about science instead of running from Flash Thompson in the hallways. Peter's jaw tightened. Only, that's when fate decided to have a laugh. A spider bite. One moment I'm taking notes on genetic engineering, the next I'm waking up with a fever that nearly killed me. And then, Amelia leaned forward slightly, intrigued. What happened next? Peter was quiet for a moment, watching the flames dance. At first, I thought everything was going well. The powers were incredible. Strength I couldn't have imagined. Speed. This sense, this tingling that warned me of danger before it happened. For a scrawny kid from Queens, it felt like winning the lottery. He paused. Until I got into a fight with my uncle. Your uncle, Uncle Ben. He and Aunt May raised me after my parents died. Peter's voice softened despite himself. Ben he was the best man I ever knew. Kind, patient, always knew the right thing to say. A bitter smile crossed his face. Which is why I was so good at ignoring him when I was being an idiot. Amelia waited, sensing the weight of what was coming. We argued about, I don't even remember what, exactly. Something stupid. Me being selfish, probably. I stormed out, slammed the door, went to blow off steam. Peter's hand curled into a fist on his knee. But before I left, he told me something. He told me that with great power, comes great responsibility. That must have been a very important thing for your uncle to say to you, Amelia said quietly. Yeah, it was. Peter's voice dropped. Too bad I didn't listen. The fire popped, sending sparks spiraling up the chimney. At first, I thought I was doing the right thing. I needed money, Aunt May and Uncle Ben were struggling, bills piling up, and I thought I could help. So I entered this wrestling event. Used my powers to win some quick cash. He laughed, and the sound was hollow. Then I realized I got scammed. The promoter took the money and ran. And as he was leaving, this guy, this thief, ran past me. I could have stopped him. I should have stopped him. Amelia's eyes widened slightly, understanding dawning. But I didn't. Peter's voice was barely above a whisper now. I told myself it wasn't my problem. That I was done being pushed around, done being the guy who helped and got nothing in return. I let him go. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unspoken words. That was my biggest mistake, Peter continued, his voice rough. My biggest regret. That guy, he carjacked someone later that night. Shot him for no reason. For a car. He looked up at Amelia, and in the firelight she could see the old grief etched into his features, the guilt that time had never fully erased. It was Uncle Ben. He was dead because I was too arrogant, too selfish, too stupid to do the right thing when it mattered. Peter. Amelia's voice was soft, pained for him. I could have done something to save him, Peter said, the words tumbling out now, years of guilt finally finding an outlet. I could have stopped the thief with one hand tied behind my back. But no, I was such an idiot. I failed him. And what did I do? I let him die because of my stupidity. My own arrogance. His fist tightened until the knuckles went white. I could have done something. I should have done something. But I didn't. Amelia reached out, her hand covering his clenched fist. The touch was warm, grounding. But your uncle's words, she said gently. They stayed with you. Peter nodded slowly. With great power comes great responsibility. I tried, God knows I tried. No matter what, no matter how many times I got knocked down, I kept getting back up. People cheered. Sometimes they booed. Sometimes they threw things. But I kept trying, kept fighting. Because I thought if I tried hard enough, if I saved enough people, maybe it would be enough. Maybe I'd finally deserve the power I was given. And did it work? Amelia asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. Peter's laugh was bitter. For a while, I found people who believed in me. Other heroes. Friends. I even fell in love, twice, actually. Gwen. MJ. Both ended badly. Gwen died. MJ. He shook his head. She broke up with me. Started hanging out with Flash Thompson, the guy who used to shove me into lockers. Can't say I blame her, really. I was never around. Always disappearing to fight the next crisis. That sounds lonely, Amelia observed. It was. But I kept going. Because that's what heroes do, right? They keep going. They sacrifice. They bleed. They lose everything and still show up the next day. Peter's voice hardened. Until that day came when the world decided I wasn't a hero anymore. The Civil War you mentioned. Yeah. Peter pulled his hand from beneath Amelia's, running it through his hair. The Superhuman Registration Act. The government wanted to control us, track us, train us, turn us into soldiers. Tony Stark, Iron Man, he thought it was the right thing. And he shook his head. At first, I thought he was right too. I mean, Tony was Tony. Genius. Billionaire. Hero. If he said it was the right move, who was I to argue? But you changed your mind. When I saw what it really meant. When I saw heroes being hunted like animals. When I saw friends arrested, families torn apart, people who'd saved the world 100 times over being treated like criminals. Peter's jaw tightened. I chose a side. The wrong one, according to the law. And I paid for it. He stood abruptly, moving to the window. Outside, the moon hung low over the treetops, painting the world in silver and shadow. I beat the crap out of Tony Stark, he said flatly. Not my finest moment, but I was angry, hurt, betrayed. And after that, I became public enemy number one. Every cop, every soldier, every hero, they were all hunting me. The media called me a menace. The people I'd saved 1,000 times over cheered when I was arrested in the papers. Amelia rose, moving to stand beside him. She didn't speak, just stood close enough that he could feel her warmth. I went to Doctor Strange in the end, Peter continued. Asked him to erase the memory of everyone who knew me. Aunt May. MJ. Everyone. I thought if they forgot, they'd be safe. That I could start over. Be someone new. He laughed, and there was no humor in it. And still, the world treated me like trash. Mocked me. Hunted me. Spit on everything I'd ever done. He turned to face her, and Amelia saw the rage beneath the grief, old wounds that had never fully healed, festering in the dark. I'm a man who tried his best, Peter said, voice shaking with anger. I helped people. I saved countless lives. I lost everyone I ever loved, gave up everything, bled for a world that never appreciated a single drop. And what did I get in return? His hands clenched at his sides. Treated like garbage. Like I was nothing. Like my whole life was some kind of joke. Amelia met his gaze steadily. Peter. Damn it all, he whispered, the rage draining away to leave only exhaustion. All I wanted was to help people. But no. What the hell did I get? Just to be treated like goddamn trash. He looked down, shoulders slumping. So I stopped. I gave up. Let Spider-Man die. Meanwhile, at the camp. The clearing outside the cabin had been transformed into a makeshift campsite. Tents dotted the tree line, and a large fire pit crackled with flames that licked at the night sky. The smell of cooking meat drifted through the air, mingling with wood smoke and the earthy scent of the forest. Deadpool emerged from the tree line dragging something large behind him. With a triumphant grunt, he hauled the carcass into the firelight, a massive boar, easily 200 pounds, its tusks gleaming in the firelight. "Room service," Wade announced cheerfully. "Who's hungry?" Moon Knight looked up from where he was sharpening a crescent blade, his white cowl catching the flames. "You actually caught something edible." "Edible. My dear Mark, may I call you Mark? This is gourmet. Wild boar, foraged from the forests of the Beast Kingdom, seasoned with the tears of my enemies and the sweat of my brow." Deadpool produced a knife from somewhere and began expertly dressing the animal. "Now someone get me a fire hot enough to make this pig regret ever being born." Gwen, Miles, and Anya sat on logs near the fire, watching the spectacle with varying degrees of amusement and horror. "I can't decide if this is impressive or terrifying," Anya muttered. "Both," Miles said, grinning. "Definitely both." Captain America sat slightly apart, his shield propped against a nearby tree, eyes scanning the darkness with the practiced vigilance of a soldier. Matt Murdock sat nearby, head tilted in that listening posture, a faint smile on his face as he tracked the conversations around him. "Hey, Cap," Deadpool called, waving a bloody knife. "You want yours rare, medium, or still running from the hunter?" Steve allowed himself a small smile. "Whatever you're cooking is fine, Wade. Just, try not to burn it." "Burn it? Me? I'm offended. Wounded, even." Deadpool pulled a pouch from his belt and began sprinkling spices over the carved meat. "See, I came prepared. Cumin, paprika, garlic powder, the essentials. I've also got some local herbs I found. This is gonna be legendary." Moon Knight raised an eyebrow. "You paid for those spices?" "Of course I did." Deadpool's mask somehow conveyed indignation. "I'm not a monster." "Well, I am, but not that kind of monster. Besides, we're going to be feasting good tonight. Wade Wilson does not half-ass dinner." Knight, the Lionfolk guard, sat near the edge of the camp, his axe across his knees. He watched the humans' antics with bemused tolerance, occasionally glancing toward the cabin where Peter and Amelia had retreated. "Your friend," Knight rumbled to no one in particular, "is very strange." "You have no idea," Gwen replied, grinning. Back in the cabin. The silence had stretched between Peter and Amelia for several minutes. Peter stood at the window, staring out at nothing, while Amelia waited patiently behind him. Finally, she spoke. "Peter." He didn't turn. She moved closer, until she was right behind him. "Peter, look at me." Slowly, he turned. His eyes were red-rimmed, but dry. He'd cried enough over the years to last several lifetimes. "You lost so much," Amelia said softly. "Your uncle, your loves, your friends, your world." She reached up, cupping his face in her hands. "But you're still here. You're still you. The man who saved me from that dungeon. The man who fights for others even when he's forgotten why." "Amelia, I'm not finished." Her voice was firm but gentle. "You told me about your past, all of it. The pain, the mistakes, the regrets. And I'm honored that you trusted me with that." Her thumbs brushed his cheekbones. "But here's what I see, Peter Parker. I see a man who was given power and chose to use it for others. A man who made mistakes and spent the rest of his life trying to atone. A man who was beaten down, betrayed, broken, and still got back up." Peter's breath caught. "That's not weakness," Amelia continued. "That's not failure. That's courage. The kind of courage that doesn't come from suits or powers or fame. It comes from here." She pressed her hand to his chest, over his heart. "And that's why I—" She stopped, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. Peter's hand came up, covering hers. "Why you what?" Amelia met his eyes. "That's why I care about you. More than I expected to. More than I probably should, given everything." For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. Then Peter's lips curved into the first genuine smile she'd seen since their reunion. "I care about you too," he said quietly. "You're the first person in a long time who's made me feel like maybe I'm not completely broken." Amelia smiled back, and it was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. Then Peter's expression shifted slightly. His eyes went distant, focusing on something she couldn't see. "What is it?" she asked. "Venom," Peter said. It's stirring. Even as he spoke, black substance began to seep from his pores, coalescing on his shoulder into a familiar shape. A grinning maw, white eyes, tendrils of living darkness. "Come on, host," the symbiote rasped, its voice a chorus of hungry whispers. "We have a demon to hunt. And we are hungry." Amelia tensed slightly but didn't pull away. She'd seen venom before, in the labyrinth, but the symbiote's presence was still unsettling. Peter's expression hardened. "Of course. But right now, we have more important things to take care of." Venom's grin widened. "The elf. Planning. Strategy. Figuring out how to save this world and figure out what's happening to mine." Peter reached up, and to Amelia's surprise, he actually patted the symbiote's head. "We'll hunt later. I promise." Venom grumbled but subsided, retreating back into Peter's skin. The traceries of black faded, leaving only the faint silver lines that now seemed permanent. "You're remarkably comfortable with that," Amelia observed. "Venom and I have an understanding." Peter turned back to the window. "It wants to eat. I want to survive. We've learned to compromise." Amelia moved to stand beside him again, following his gaze toward the distant lights of the Beast Kingdom's capital. "So what now?" Peter was quiet for a long moment, considering. Then he spoke, his voice soft but steady. "Now we prepare. Leah's contacting her father. You're reaching out to the Elven Council. My people are scouting for other survivors." He glanced at her. "And then we find out exactly what the Demon Lord's connection is to the Shadow Monarch. Because I have a feeling that's the key to everything." Amelia nodded. And after that, Peter looked out at the horizon, at the vast unknown stretching before them. The shadows at the edges of the room seemed to pulse in anticipation. After that, he said quietly, "We see if a broken hero, an elven princess, and a bunch of misfits from another world can actually make a difference." Amelia slipped her hand into his. "I think we can." He squeezed her fingers, drawing strength from the simple contact. Outside, the fire crackled and Wade's off-key singing drifted through the night. Inside, two people from different worlds stood together, facing an uncertain future with nothing but each other and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, things could be different this time. Meanwhile, Earth 616 *. The world was burning. Not literally, not yet. But the chaos spreading across every continent was its own kind of fire, consuming order, civilization, hope. News reports flickered across screens in empty studios, automated broadcasts repeating the same desperate messages. Authorities are advising citizens to remain indoors. The gates, mysterious portals appearing in major cities, continue to spew unknown creatures. Military response has been inadequate. We are receiving reports that the Avengers facility is abandoned. The Fantastic Four's building is dark. The X-Mansion is silent. We are alone. In New York, the streets were war zones. Monsters, some recognizable from old myths, others utterly alien, rampaged through neighborhoods. The few remaining police and military units fought valiantly but hopelessly, their weapons barely scratching the hides of the larger beasts. In Chicago, a gate the size of a skyscraper had opened in the heart of the city, disgorging an endless tide of insectoid creatures that devoured everything in their path. In Tokyo, a giant serpent coiled around the Tokyo Tower, its scales gleaming with an otherworldly light. In London, the Thames ran red. And in the chaos, villains who had terrorized the world for decades fell like wheat before a scythe. Dr. Octopus, caught unaware when a gate opened in his secret lab, was torn apart by creatures that didn't care about his genius. The Vulture's wings were shredded by flying demons. Even the Kingpin, surrounded by his private army, was overwhelmed when a gate opened directly inside his penthouse. But amid the destruction, something else was happening. In the shadows of a ruined city, a figure moved. Tall, silent, clad in black that seemed to drink the light around him. Behind him marched an army, not of living soldiers but of shadows. Fallen monsters, risen again as servants. Fallen heroes, their forms indistinct but unmistakable. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. The figure raised his hand, and the shadows surged forward to meet a new wave of monsters pouring from a freshly opened gate. The battle was silent, efficient, absolute. When it was over, the figure stood amid the carnage, his army reforming behind him. He looked up at the sky, at the 7 massive gates that now hung in orbit around the earth, each pulsing with a different malevolent energy. So, the figure murmured, his voice carrying the weight of ages, you've finally come to claim this world. The ruler's precious little experiment. He smiled, and there was nothing human in it. You'll find it's already claimed. Behind him, one of the shadow soldiers stirred, a smaller form, quicker than the others. It moved to stand beside its master, and in its indistinct features, a faint resemblance could be seen. Dark hair, a lean build, the suggestion of a spider on its chest, now swallowed by shadow. The shadow monarch glanced at it, something almost like recognition flickering in his eyes. Not yet, he said quietly. He's not ready, but soon. The shadow soldier seemed to nod, then melted back into the army. Above, the seven gates pulsed, and the monarch of shadows prepared for war. Chapter 8, Killing the King. Dawn painted the beast kingdom in shades of gold and amber. Peter stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the capital city, Uruk, they called it. A sprawling metropolis of stone and wood, blending natural beauty with sophisticated architecture. Beast folk of every description moved through its streets. Lionfolk guards in polished armor, foxkin merchants hawking wares, wolfkin rangers moving with purpose. And somewhere in that city, Graham Cluster waited. The noble who'd orchestrated Amelia's kidnapping. The puppet dancing to a demon lord's strings. The man who'd thought he could use a high elf princess as bait for a shadow ghost. Peter's hand tightened at his side. Remember who you are, he told himself. Not Spider-Man. Not anymore. But not a mindless killer either. Asterisk. He'd made peace with that, he thought. After everything, after Uncle Ben's words, after the Civil War, after this world had given him a second chance, he'd finally understood. Uncle Ben's lesson wasn't about being a hero. It wasn't about masks or media or public opinion. It was about choice. About using whatever power you had to do what was right, regardless of what anyone else thought. And what was right here? Graham Cluster had tried to kill Amelia. Had conspired with demons, had tortured and murdered countless innocents to maintain his power. The man deserved to die. But how Peter killed him, that would define everything. This is my life now, Peter murmured to the wind. And I'm not letting anyone else take control of it. He raised his hand to the sky, sunlight streaming through his fingers. For a moment, he imagined Uncle Ben standing beside him, that gentle smile, those words. With great power comes great responsibility. Asterisk. I'm sorry, Uncle Ben. If you can forgive me for some of the choices I make, please forgive me. His voice cracked slightly. I know there are good people out there. Even in a world filled with evil and corruption that could break any man. But I have to do this. For her. For them. For me. He lowered his hand, jaw setting with determination. Forgive me. The pub. The Broken Antler wasn't the worst tavern in Uruk, but it was close. Sticky floors, questionable patrons, ale that tasted faintly of feet, but it was also anonymous, and anonymity was exactly what Peter needed while he gathered information. He'd brought Amelia along partly for safety, partly because he couldn't stand to let her out of his sight after nearly losing her. They sat in a corner booth, hoods up, nursing drinks neither of them actually wanted to finish. You're brooding, Amelia observed. I'm thinking. Same thing, with you. Peter almost smiled. Almost. Just running through the plan. Infiltrate the manor. Neutralize the guards. Confront Graham. Get out clean. Simple. Simple and impossible are close cousins in my experience. Before Amelia could respond, the tavern's door burst open. Graham Cluster himself strode in, flanked by a half-dozen armored knights. The noble was everything Peter expected. Overweight, overdressed, oozing entitled cruelty from every pore. His eyes scanned the room like a predator's, or like someone looking for prey. There. Graham pointed directly at their booth. The elf and her shadow protector. Seize them. Peter was moving before the first knight took a step. His katana cleared the sheath in a fluid motion, deflecting a spear thrust and sending the attacker crashing into a table. Amelia rose beside him, hands glowing with magical energy. Go. Peter shouted, grabbing her arm. Through the back. They ran. Knights gave chase, their heavy boots thundering behind them. Peter's shadows lashed out, tripping two, slowing a third. Amelia hurled a blinding flash that sent another reeling. They burst through the tavern's rear door into an alley. And found themselves facing a wall. Up. Peter triggered his symbiote-enhanced strength, leaping to a windowsill, then to the roof. Amelia followed, her elven grace making the climb look effortless. Below, Graham's knights milled uselessly, shouting orders. But someone else watched from the shadows of a nearby building. Purple hair, crimson eyes, a knowing smile. The daughter of the Demon King. Escape. Need a hand. The voice came from above. Peter looked up to find a woman hovering on gleaming wings, her purple hair cascading like silk, her expression curious rather than hostile. Who the hell are you? An interested party. She extended a hand. Also someone who really hates my father. So I'm thinking we have common ground. Coming. Amelia glanced at Peter. He hesitated half a second, then nodded. They grabbed the woman's hands, and she shot skyward, carrying them above the rooftops, above the shouting knights, above the city itself. Wind whipped past as they soared, the beast kingdom shrinking beneath them. Lattice Snail, the woman said over the wind. Daughter of the Demon King, recent orphan by choice, and your new best friend if you're planning to kill the bastard who sired me. Peter stared at her. You want us to kill your father? I want you to kill a demon lord. Preferably the one who's been meddling in beastfolk politics. My father just happens to be that particular demon lord. She smiled, and there was something feral in it. Consider it a family disagreement. They landed in a forest clearing miles from the city. Lattice released them, settling on a mossy rock with inhuman grace. You're the shadow assassin everyone's whispering about, she said, studying Peter. The one who appeared from nowhere, who fights like a demon yourself. And you're connected to him, aren't you? The Shadow Monarch. Peter stiffened. How do you know about that? I'm a demon lord's daughter. I know many things. Lattice's gaze grew distant. My father sensed it the moment you arrived in this world. A thread connecting you to something beyond, something ancient and terrifying. He wanted to capture you, study you, use you as a key. She laughed bitterly. Typical. Always reaching for power he doesn't understand. And you? Amelia asked carefully. What do you want? Freedom. The word was raw, honest. My father has controlled me for centuries. Used me as a tool, a bargaining chip, a weapon. I want him dead, and I don't care who does it. You're the best chance I've seen. She met Peter's eyes. I can help you. Information, resources, maybe even power. In exchange for my freedom. Peter considered her for a long moment. Shadows flickered at his feet, venom stirring with interest. Tell me everything you know about Graham Cluster, he said finally. Then we'll talk about your father. Lattice's smile widened. The recording. Days passed. Planning. Preparation. And then, finally, the information they needed. A messenger arrived at their hidden camp, one of Lattice's agents, carrying a small crystalline device. When activated, it projected a recording. Graham Cluster's face filled the image, sweating, arrogant, utterly convinced of his own superiority. The elf princess is secured. The shadow assassin will come for her, they always come for the pretty ones. And when he does, the demon lord's trap will spring. We'll have both of them, the key to the shadow monarch, and the leverage to control him. Asterisk. Another voice, smooth and cold, see that you do not fail. The Lord grows impatient. Asterisk. I won't fail. The assassin's head will decorate my wall, and the elf will fuel the ritual that opens the final gate. The beast kingdom will fall, and I will rule its ashes. Asterisk. The recording ended. Peter sat in silence, surrounded by his allies, Amelia, Leah, Knight, Crow, and the spider squad who joined them. Lattice watched from the shadows, a ghost at the edge of their circle. He orchestrated everything, Leah said quietly. Siren's death. The attacks on the border. The kidnapping. Her claws extended. He deserves to die. He will. Peter stood, moving to where his equipment waited. The black tactical suit. The night vision goggles. The mask. The katana. Tonight. The kill. Graham Cluster's manor sat on a hill overlooking Uruk, a monument to corruption disguised as elegance. Its walls were high, its guards numerous, its defenses formidable. Peter bypassed them all. He moved through shadows like he'd been born to them, venom enhancing every step, every strike. Guards fell without a sound, knocked out, tied up, removed from the equation. He wasn't here to massacre, he was here to execute. One man, one target, minimal casualties. Responsibility, Uncle Ben's voice whispered. With great power comes. Asterisk. I know, Peter breathed. I know. He found Graham in his private chamber, surrounded by luxury and fear. The noble turned as Peter materialized from the darkness, eyes widening. You. Me. Peter's voice was cold, controlled. You tried to kill Amelia. You conspired with demons. You murdered innocents for power. Graham laughed, high and desperate. You think that matters. You think you matter. You're nothing, a ghost, a shadow, a. Venom surged. Peter's arm transformed, the symbiote shaping itself into a blade, black, gleaming, impossibly sharp. It pierced Graham's chest before he could finish, through heart and out the other side. The noble stared, mouth open, disbelief frozen on his face. Then he crumpled. Peter stood over him, breathing hard. Venom receded, the blade becoming flesh once more. Blood dripped from his fingers. He'd killed before. In battle, in self-defense, in the chaos of war. But this was different. This was deliberate. This was choice. With great power comes great responsibility. Asterisk. I'm sorry, Uncle Ben. Peter knelt beside the body, head bowed. I'm sorry I couldn't find another way. I'm sorry for every life I couldn't save. I'm sorry for who I've become. Silence. Then, soft footsteps. Amelia knelt beside him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. She said nothing, just held him, warm and solid and real. No matter what happens to you, she whispered finally, I'll always be standing by your side. Peter looked at her, really looked, at the woman who'd seen his darkness and stayed. Who'd believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. Who'd kissed him like he was worth loving. Amelia, ever since you got here, she continued, since you saved me in that dungeon, I've seen you carve your own path. Not as Spider-Man. Not as some puppet to be used as a weapon. But as yourself. As you. Free to decide your own choices. She smiled, tears in her eyes. I promise I'll do the same. After all, I learned from the best. Peter didn't speak. Couldn't. He just pulled her close and held on. After. Dawn broke over the Beast Kingdom. Peter stood at the forest's edge, transformed. His suit had evolved, the Spider-Man insignia gone, replaced by sleek, tactical black with white and gray accents. Night vision goggles rested on his forehead. A hood shadowed his features. He looked less like a hero and more like what he'd become, an assassin. A shadow. A force of nature wrapped in human form. But his eyes, those were still Peter's. Still held warmth. Still held hope. Behind him, Crow the cat beastman stretched, tail twitching. Night perched on his shoulder, purring. Amelia stood at his side, hand in his. And before them, a gate shimmered into existence. Blue at first, calm, inviting. Then it shifted, deepened, turned crimson as blood. The red gate. The path home. Peter stared at it, heart pounding. Home. Earth. Everything he'd left behind. The pain, the betrayal, the loss, waiting on the other side. But also, possibility. You guys can come with me, he said suddenly. To my world. Amelia's eyes widened. Peter, I mean it. He turned to face them. Amelia, Crow, Night. I've been thinking about it. You're my family now. All of you. And I'm not leaving family behind again. Night purred louder, rubbing against his neck. Crow grinned, fangs glinting. I'm rather curious to see what your world looks like. Same here, Amelia said softly, squeezing his hand. Peter smiled, a real smile, warm and unguarded. They stepped forward together, into the red. Meanwhile, the blue gate pulsed gently in another part of the forest. Captain America studied it, shield ready. Deadpool bounced on his heels. Gwen, Miles, Anya checked their gear. Matt Murdock listened, head tilted. It leads home, Matt said quietly. I can hear it, the heartbeat of the city. New York. Then we go, Steve decided. Together. We find Peter, we find out what's happening, and we fight. The Spider Squad nodded. Moon Knight stepped forward, Khonshu's power radiating. Deadpool cracked a joke no one laughed at. They entered the blue gate as one. And on the other side, two worlds waited to collide. Chapter 9, The Return. The red gate swallowed them whole. For a moment, Peter felt nothing. Just the familiar lurch of dimensional travel, the stomach-dropping sensation of reality folding in on itself. Then light erupted, blinding and sudden, and he was falling. He hit the ground rolling, shadows cushioning his landing, Venom's instinct screaming warnings. Beside him, Amelia stumbled but caught herself, elven grace winning out over surprise. Crow landed in a crouch, claws extended, tail bristling. Night materialized from Peter's shadow, the feline familiar's eyes glowing gold as he scanned their surroundings. They weren't in New York. They weren't anywhere Peter recognized. The sky was wrong, a bruised purple-gray, shot through with veins of crimson light. The ground beneath them was cracked earth, littered with rubble and the remains of what might have once been a highway. In the distance, a city skyline jutted against the horizon, but it was broken, skeletal, like a corpse left to rot. "Where are we?" Amelia whispered, her hand finding Peter's. He didn't answer immediately. His senses, sharpened, enhanced, hungry, were already cataloging threats. Movement ahead. Voices. The distinctive hum of mana being channeled. "Survivors," he said quietly. Korean, from the sound of it. Crow's ears twitched. "You understand their language." "I understand a lot of things." Peter's mask was already in place, the goggles sliding down over his eyes. "Stay close. Don't assume friendly." They crept forward, using rubble for cover, until the scene came into view. A group of maybe a dozen hunters, Peter recognized the term from the fragments of information he'd gathered before leaving the Beast Kingdom, were pinned down behind a collapsed overpass. Their gear was high quality, their stances professional, but fear hung over them like a shroud. Facing them across a stretch of no man's land was a horde of ice-blue creatures, elves, or something like them, with frozen features and weapons carved from crystallized frost. Ice elves, venom supplied helpfully. Tasty. Focus. One of the hunters, a woman with cropped black hair and sharp features, spotted them first. Her hand went to her weapon, but she didn't fire. Instead, her eyes narrowed, focusing on the pointed ears visible beneath Amelia's hood. "Elf," she called out in accented English. "A real elf. Not one of those," she gestured at the ice creatures, things. Amelia stepped forward before Peter could stop her. "I am Amelia Rosaquartz, High Elf of the Silverwood. These are my companions." She indicated Peter, Crow, and Night. "We mean you no harm." The Korean hunters exchanged glances. Their leader, a tall man with a scar across his cheek and A-rank insignia on his collar, stepped forward cautiously. "A high elf," he repeated. "I've read about your kind. From the other side of the gates, yes." His gaze shifted to Peter. "And you don't smell like elf." Peter's voice was flat, filtered through his mask. "Human. Mostly." Mostly. Before Peter could answer, a new presence made itself known. The hunters parted, and Peter understood why. He was young, younger than Peter expected, given the power radiating off him. Dark hair, sharp eyes, a face that held shadows the way Peter's own did. He wore black, practical gear, unadorned except for a single dagger at his hip. But it wasn't the weapon that drew attention. It was the army. Figures materialized from the ground around him, soldiers of shadow, their forms flickering between solid and spectral, their eyes glowing with the same crimson light that streaked the sky. Knights in black armor, rogues with daggers drawn, mages crackling with dark energy. And behind them all, towering over the battlefield like a monument to death itself, a massive figure wreathed in shadow. Peter's shadows stirred in response. "Interesting," Venom purred. "Very interesting." The young man's gaze locked onto Peter's. For a long moment, neither spoke. The air between them crackled with recognition, two predators sizing each other up, measuring threat and potential. "Sung Jin Woo," the young man said finally, his voice quiet but carrying. "You are." Peter inclined his head slightly. "Peter Parker. Shadow Assassin." Jin Woo's eyes flickered to the shadows gathering at Peter's feet, then to the symbiote that rippled across his shoulders like a living cloak. Something like understanding crossed his face. "You're like me," Jin Woo said. It wasn't a question. "I'm nothing like you." Peter's voice was cold, but not hostile. "Just, factual. But we have the same problem." He gestured toward the ice elves, who had paused their advance to observe this new development. "Those things. They're not going to wait forever." The Korean hunter's leader, Kim, Peter learned, stepped forward, his expression hardening. "We don't need help from some freak who showed up out of nowhere. This is a Korean operation. You'll follow our orders or..." Peter moved. Not to attack, not quite. But suddenly he was there, inches from Kim's face, Venom's tendrils curling around his throat just enough to feel the man's pulse hammer against them. Or what? Peter's voice was soft, reasonable, entirely terrifying. You'll try to give me orders. You'll threaten me. You'll do something stupid. Kim's hunters raised their weapons. Crow's claws extended. Amelia's crossbow, Peter's own design, compact and lethal, materialized in her hands. Knight's growl rumbled through the rubble. Jinwoo watched, expression unreadable. I'm not here to take orders, Peter continued, releasing Kim and stepping back. I'm not here to play hero. I'm here to kill monsters and keep my people alive. If that aligns with your goals, good. If not, he shrugged. Stay out of my way. Kim's face flushed with rage. His hand went to his weapon, a massive axe strapped across his back, and for a moment, Peter thought the man would actually try something. Then Jinwoo spoke. Kim. Just the name. Quiet. Unquestionable. Kim froze. We need every blade we can get, Jinwoo said, still watching Peter. The ice elves won't wait. Discuss territory after. His eyes never left Peter's. Agreed. Peter held his gaze for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. Agreed. The battle was chaos. The ice elves charged in a coordinated wave, their frozen weapons gleaming with malice. They were fast, faster than they looked, and their magic crackled through the air, freezing everything it touched. Peter met them head-on. Venom erupted from his body, the symbiote forming a second skin of living darkness. His katana sang through the air, cleaving through the first wave of attackers. Behind him, shadows coiled and struck, extensions of his will, binding and crushing and tearing. Beside him, Jinwoo moved like death incarnate. His shadow army swept across the battlefield, knights trading blows with ice elf champions, rogues slipping through enemy lines to strike from behind, mages hurling bolts of dark energy that shattered frozen shields. And Jinwoo himself was a blur of motion, his dagger flashing, his body flowing between attacks like water. They didn't coordinate. Didn't need to. They simply fought, their powers complementing each other in ways neither had anticipated. Amelia held the flank, her crossbow singing. Each bolt was tipped with elven magic, enchanted by Peter's own hand, and they punched through ice elf armor like paper. Crow danced at her side, claws and fangs tearing into any enemy that got too close. Night flowed through the chaos, a shadow within shadows, tripping and distracting and weakening. Peter felt it as he fought, the familiar surge of power, the leveling up system responding to the challenge. His stats climbed, his abilities sharpened, the symbiote sang with pleasure, feeding on the combat, growing stronger with every kill. More, Venom urged. Give us more. Working on it. He spotted Kim in the chaos, the A-rank hunter fighting desperately, his axe carving through ice elves but not fast enough. One of the creatures slipped past his guard, spear aimed at his back. Peter's tendril snapped out, wrapping around the ice elf's throat and pulling. The creature crashed to the ground, and Peter's katana followed a heartbeat later, severing its head from its shoulders. Kim stared at him, breathing hard. Peter said nothing, just moved on to the next target. The ice elf leader was a towering thing, easily 10 feet tall, its body encased in armor that looked like frozen starlight. It wielded a massive greatsword that trailed frost, and its eyes burned with ancient malice. Jinwoo reached it first. His shadows swarmed the creature, but the ice elf leader was no ordinary opponent. Its blade swept through the shadow soldiers, dispersing them, and its free hand grabbed one of Jinwoo's knights, crushing it to powder. Peter moved without thinking. Venom propelled him forward, tendrils lashing out to bind the creature's arms. The ice elf leader roared, frost exploding outward, but Peter's symbiote held. Jinwoo seized the opening, his dagger plunging into the creature's throat. Not enough. The ice elf leader grabbed Jinwoo, hurling him into a pile of rubble. It turned toward Peter, greatsword raised. And froze. Because Kim was standing behind it, axe raised. For a moment, Peter thought the man was going to help. Then he saw Kim's eyes, wild, desperate, fixed not on the ice elf but on Jinwoo's prone form. He's going to try to kill him, Peter realized. In the chaos, make it look like an accident. The axe came down, and Peter's tendril caught it mid-swing. Venom's strength was immense. The axe stopped dead, inches from Jinwoo's skull. Kim's eyes went wide. What? Peter's other tendril punched through Kim's armor like it was paper. Through his chest, out his back, Kim stared down at the black spike protruding from his torso, then up at Peter. His mouth opened, but only blood came out. "You lost your mind," Peter said quietly. "Tried to kill everyone. I stopped you." Kim's body crumpled. Peter turned back to the Ice Elf leader, which had been watching the exchange with something like amusement. Its greatsword descended, and Jinwoo's shadow army rose up to meet it. The battle that followed was brutal. Peter and Jinwoo fought side by side, their powers weaving together in a deadly dance. Shadow soldiers and symbiote tendrils. Daggers and katana. Darkness answering darkness. When the Ice Elf leader finally fell, its head separated from its body by a combined strike from both Peter's blade and Jinwoo's dagger, the battlefield fell silent. Peter stood over the corpse, breathing hard. Venom receded slightly, sated. Jinwoo stood opposite him, equally exhausted, equally watchful. "You killed Kim," Jinwoo said. "He was going to kill you." Peter's voice was flat. "During the chaos. Make it look like an accident. I saw his eyes." Jinwoo was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "I know." The rest of the hunters gathered, staring at Peter with a mixture of fear and awe. The woman from earlier, the A rank who'd first spotted Amelia, stepped forward. What happened to Kim?" Peter met her gaze. "He lost his mind. Tried to kill everyone. I stopped him." He bowed slightly, not in apology, but in acknowledgement of responsibility. "I'll take full responsibility. My hunter's license is expired. Revoked. I need to register." The woman, Cho, she introduced herself later, stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. I'll make sure the report reflects what happened." She glanced at Jinwoo. "You'll confirm?" Jinwoo nodded once. "He saved my life. That matters." The city. The journey back to civilization was quiet. Peter's group walked apart from the Korean hunters, though not hostilely. Crow kept glancing at the broken skyline, his tail twitching nervously. Amelia's hand stayed on her crossbow. Knight rode on Crow's shoulder, golden eyes scanning constantly. And then they crested a hill, and Seoul spread out before them. Amelia gasped. The city was immense, a sprawling metropolis of glass and steel, dwarfing anything in the Beast Kingdom. Cars moved along highways. People walked the streets. Neon signs flickered in a dozen languages. And everywhere, there were gates, blue portals hovering in the air, some small, some massive, all pulsing with otherworldly energy. "It's beautiful," Amelia whispered. Peter said nothing. He was looking at the sky, at the absence of anything familiar. No Avengers Tower. No Baxter Building. No X-Jet streaking overhead. Just gates. And hunters. And a world that had moved on without them. "Things are different now," Venom observed. "Yeah," Peter agreed silently. "They are." The apartment. Peter's old contacts, the ones who'd survived, the ones who hadn't turned on him, had kept a safe house maintained. It wasn't much by New York standards. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small kitchen, a living room with a view of the broken skyline. To Amelia, it was a palace. "So many rooms," she breathed, touching the walls wonderingly. "And the lights work without magic. The water flows without spells." "Technology," Peter said, though the word felt hollow. "Science. Used to be my thing." Crow was already investigating the refrigerator, nose twitching at the contents. "What is this? Leftover pizza. Don't eat that. It's probably older than you. Everything in this world seems older than me." Knight had claimed the windowsill, basking in a rare patch of sunlight. His purr rumbled through the room like a small engine. Peter stood at the window, looking out at Seoul. The city was alive in a way he hadn't expected, not just surviving, but thriving. Hunters walked the streets like celebrities. Gate breaks were treated like natural disasters, managed and contained. People had adapted. They didn't need heroes, he realized. They needed hunters. They needed systems. They needed to fight back on their own terms. Maybe that was better. Maybe the age of capes and cowls had needed to end. "You're brooding," Venom observed. "I'm thinking. Same thing." Peter almost smiled. The others. Across the city, in a different district, a different reunion was taking place. Deadpool burst through the door of an abandoned warehouse, katana in one hand, chimichanga in the other. "Honey, I'm home. And by home, I mean, wherever the hell we ended up, and by honey, I mean." "Wade." Moon Knight's voice echoed from the shadows. Shut up. Behind them, Captain America emerged, shield raised, expression grim. The others filtered in behind him, Gwen, Miles, Anya, Matt, even Stephen Strange, who had found his own way through the dimensional chaos. We're back, Steve said quietly. But not the way we left. Matt nodded, his cane tapping against the concrete floor. I can hear it. The city's heartbeat. It's different now. Changed. Let me see. Stephen's hands wove through the air, eldritch energy spiraling outward. Images formed, news reports, headlines, footage of gates opening and monsters pouring through. The heroes disappeared. All of them. The world thought they'd been abandoned. Gwen's face was pale. How long? Months. Maybe longer. Time is difficult across dimensions. Miles slumped against a wall. Our families. Our friends. Did they even know we're alive? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Deadpool, for once, had nothing to say. The news. Peter found the reports easily enough. His laptop, old, outdated, but still functional, connected to the local network, and the headlines flooded in. Heroes missing. Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four vanish without trace. Gates appear globally. Hunters rise to fill the void. Spider-Man. Menace or martyr. Experts debate legacy of missing wall crawler. Shield collapses. International community struggles to respond. Monarchs. The Seven Kings of Chaos WHO rule the gates. Peter read them all, his expression neutral. Amelia sat beside him, reading over his shoulder, her brow furrowed. Your world, she said slowly, moved on without you. They moved on without heroes. Peter closed the laptop. Maybe that's for the best. Is it? He didn't answer. That night, the apartment was quiet. Crow had claimed the smallest bedroom, curling up on a pile of blankets he'd arranged into a nest. Knight slept at the foot of Peter's bed, one golden eye cracked open in watchfulness. Amelia stood at the window, looking out at the city lights. Peter joined her. Things are going to get complicated, he said quietly. The hunters will want to talk to us. Register us. Put us in their systems. The Korean government will have questions about Kim's death, even with Cho's report. And somewhere out there, he paused. The monarchs are watching. Amelia turned to face him. Are you scared? Peter considered the question. No, not scared. Just aware. This world isn't the one I left. It's harder now. More brutal. But also more honest. He glanced at her. People know what they're fighting. They're not pretending anymore. And you, I'm not pretending either. He reached out, taking her hand. I'm not Spider-Man. I'm not a hero. I'm just me, Peter Parker, shadow assassin. And I'm going to carve my own path through this chaos, same as I did in your world. Amelia smiled, that warm, real smile that made his chest ache. Then I'll be right beside you. Carving my own path too. They stood there, hand in hand, watching the lights of a changed world flicker against the darkness. Somewhere in the distance, a gate opened. Somewhere closer, a shadow stirred. And Peter Parker, once Spider-Man, now something else entirely, felt the old familiar tension settle into his bones. The prelude to a fight, the promise of conflict, the certainty that peace was never meant to last. Good, Venom whispered. We were getting bored. Yeah, Peter thought back. Me too. Chapter 10. I'm an S rank. The days that followed their return to Seoul passed in a strange, suspended haze. Peter had expected chaos, violence, the kind of non-stop survival that had defined his time in the Beast Kingdom. Instead, he got paperwork, waiting, the mundane reality of existing in a world that ran on bureaucracy as much as mana. You're brooding again, Amelia observed, pulling a soft gray sweater over her head. I'm observing. You're standing in the middle of the department store, staring at a mannequin like it personally offended you. Peter blinked, realizing she was right. The mannequin, dressed in some kind of tactical casual fusion that probably cost more than his entire apartment's monthly rent, stared back with blank, plastic indifference. Kill it, Venom suggested. No, it mocked us. It's a mannequin. A mocking mannequin. Peter sighed and turned away, leaving the innocent display to its existential fate. The shopping district of Seoul was a sensory assault. Neon signs in Hangul and English flashed overhead. Street vendors hawked everything from grilled octopus to the latest smartphones. Crowds flowed around them like a living river, most people too absorbed in their own lives to give more than a passing glance at the strange trio in their midst. Though, passing glance, was perhaps an understatement. Amelia drew stares wherever she went. Her high elf heritage was impossible to miss, the delicate points of her ears, the ethereal quality of her features, the way her silver blonde hair caught the light like spun moonlight. She'd traded her Beast Kingdom garments for modern clothes, a cream-colored blouse, dark jeans, ankle boots, but nothing could make her look ordinary. Crow was even more conspicuous. The cat beastman had embraced modern fashion with bewildered enthusiasm, currently sporting a leather jacket, ripped jeans, and sunglasses perched on his nose despite being indoors. His tail swished behind him as he walked, and his ears twitched at every new sound. "People are staring," Crow muttered, hunching his shoulders. "People always stare," Peter replied. "Let them." Knight, perched on Peter's shoulder, let out a dismissive merow and began grooming one paw. They'd come for clothes, Amelia's idea, after she'd spent 3 days wearing borrowed items that didn't quite fit. Peter had expected a quick in and out. 3 hours later, they were still here, and he'd learned 2 important things. High elves had opinions about fabric texture. Crow had an unexpected passion for footwear. "This one," Amelia announced, holding up a deep green dress that matched her eyes. "And this one, a burgundy number. And this one, something black and elegant that made Peter's brain short-circuit momentarily. That's a lot of clothes. We had nothing where we came from. Nothing fashionable." She gave him a look. "You're not going to deny me this, are you?" Peter thought about the dungeon where he'd found her. The chains, the altar, the terror in her eyes when she'd thought no one was coming. "Buy whatever you want," he said quietly. Amelia's expression softened. She leaned in, pressing a quick kiss to his cheek. "I'm keeping you." "Lucky me." Crow appeared with an armload of shoeboxes. "I have made excellent decisions." The next day, Hunters Association. The Hunters Association building was an imposing fortress of glass and steel, its lobby bustling with activity. Hunters of various ranks moved through the space, some in casual clothes, others in full combat gear, all wearing the distinctive insignia that marked their classification. Peter felt eyes on him the moment he walked through the doors. His group drew attention like a magnet. Amelia's elf ears, Crow's beastman features, and Peter himself, young, masked, radiating an aura of quiet menace that made lesser hunters step aside without thinking. "They sense us," Venom observed with satisfaction. "The shadows. They know we're not prey. Stop intimidating the receptionists. They should be honored." A young woman at the front desk stammered through the check-in process, her eyes darting between Peter's mask and his companions. "Why you're here for license registration." "Yes," Peter said. His voice was calm, unhurried. "My party and I need to be evaluated." Of course. Please wait in the designated area. The examiner will call you shortly." They found seats in a waiting area furnished with uncomfortable chairs and magazines that were 3 months out of date. A few other hunters sat scattered around, some eyeing them with curiosity, others with poorly concealed hostility. "Racists," Venom identified. "I noticed." One of them, a beefy man with D-rank insignia, muttered something under his breath about monsters taking jobs. Peter didn't react. Didn't need to. Crow's ears flattened, and Amelia's hand drifted toward the crossbow hidden beneath her jacket, but Peter placed a restraining hand on her arm. "Not here," he murmured. "Not yet." The door opened. Sung Jinwoo walked in. The shadow monarch moved through the room like a ghost, his presence drawing every eye. He was alone today, no shadow army visible, no soldiers materializing from the floor. Just a young man in dark clothes, his expression unreadable. He spotted Peter. Nodded once. Peter nodded back. No words exchanged. None needed. 2 predators, acknowledging each other's existence, each aware of the power coiled beneath the other's skin. Jinwoo took a seat across the room, and the silence between them was more eloquent than any conversation could have been. The evaluations took place in a reinforced chamber deep within the building, a space designed to contain the unleashed power of hunters while measuring their capabilities. Sensors lined the walls. Observers watched from behind reinforced glass. The air hummed with mana detection spells and technological scanners working in tandem. Amelia went first. She stepped into the center of the chamber, her elven grace making the movement look like a dance. Peter watched through the observation window, Crow beside him, Knight perched on his shoulder. "Begin," a voice announced over the intercom. Amelia closed her eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, light erupted. Not the harsh glare of modern magic, but something ancient and beautiful. Silver and gold intertwined, spiraling around her like living ribbons. Her crossbow, Peter's gift, his craftsmanship, appeared in her hands, and she fired. The bolts moved impossibly fast, each one finding its target with precision that made the observers murmur in appreciation. A barrier of shimmering energy formed around her, deflected the practice drones that swarmed in. Her arrows pierced through the ones that got too close. When the evaluation ended, the sensors flickered with data. "A rank," the chief examiner announced, his voice tinged with surprise. "High A rank. Potential for S under the right conditions." Amelia stepped out of the chamber, slightly flushed, her eyes finding Peter's immediately. He gave her a small nod of approval, and she smiled. Crow was next. The cat beastman removed his sunglasses, handing them to Peter without a word. His tail lashed once, nervous energy, then he entered the chamber. His style was completely different from Amelia's. Where she was grace and precision, Crow was speed and ferocity. His claws extended, gleaming with latent mana. He moved in bursts, too fast for the sensors to track clearly, appearing and disappearing like a living shadow. "Interesting," Venom commented. "He's learned from watching us. He's a quick study." Crow tore through the practice drones with savage efficiency, his movements economical, deadly. When a particularly large drone tried to corner him, he simply wasn't there anymore, reappearing behind it to deliver a killing blow. "A rank," the examiner announced. "Combat specialization. Recommendation for rapid advancement." Crow emerged from the chamber, tail held high, a rare grin on his face. "Did you see that? Did you see that?" "We saw," Peter said, and there might have been the ghost of warmth in his voice. "Maybe," Venom allowed. "Maybe a little warmth." Then it was Peter's turn. He walked into the chamber slowly, deliberately. The door closed behind him with a heavy thunk. The sensors hummed to life. "They're watching," Venom said. "Let's give them a show." "No." Peter's mental voice was calm. "Let's give them a warning." He didn't draw his katana. Didn't summon Venom's full power. Didn't tap into the deeper darkness, the connection to Null, the symbiote godhood that simmered beneath his surface. He simply stood there and let them see. The sensors went wild. Numbers flashed across the observers, screens, strength, speed, mana capacity, combat potential, all of them climbing past normal ranges, past A-rank thresholds, past anything the examiners had seen before. "What is he doing?" one of the observers whispered. "Nothing," the chief examiner breathed. "He's doing nothing, and he's still. Look at those readings. Look at that." Peter's shadows began to move. Not attacking, not threatening, just existing, expanding outward like spilled ink, filling the chamber with darkness that somehow felt alive. Venom's presence manifested, not the full symbiote, but enough to coat Peter's skin in living black, enough to make his eyes glow with crimson light. He held it for exactly 10 seconds. Then he pulled everything back, leaving the chamber clean and bright and utterly mundane. When he walked out, the observers were still staring at their screens. "S rank," the chief examiner finally said, his voice shaking slightly. "Gods above. S rank. That makes 11. Peter inclined his head. "I know. The announcement. The Hunters Association prided itself on transparency. Which meant, of course, that news of Korea's 11th S-rank hunter spread like wildfire. Peter had expected discretion. What he got was a press conference, cameras broadcasting his image across every screen in Seoul, his masked face plastered on news sites and social media within minutes. Shadow Assassin, Korea's newest S-rank. Mysterious hunter emerges from nowhere. WHO is the man behind the mask. 2 S-ranks. Sung Jin-woo and Shadow Assassin, a new era for Korean hunting. Peter stood in a hallway, watching the coverage on a wall-mounted screen. Amelia was beside him, Crow on his other side. Knight had retreated into Peter's shadow, overwhelmed by the noise. "This is a lot," Amelia said carefully. "This is a nightmare," Peter corrected. "Fame," Venom mused. "Power. Recognition. I don't want recognition. I want to be left alone." Too late. A door opened down the hall. Sung Jinwoo emerged, his own evaluation clearly complete. Their eyes met. "You're on every channel," Jinwoo observed. "So are you." A pause. "We should leave," Jinwoo said. "I was thinking the same thing." They moved together, not quite a team, not quite allies, but something in between. 2S ranks, slipping through the building's back corridors, avoiding the press and the cameras and the chaos. Peter felt a smile tugging at his lips beneath his mask. No longer the weakling. No longer someone to be pushed around. No longer the hero who got stepped on and spat upon and forgotten. "Peter Parker," Venom whispered, S-rank hunter. "Shadow assassin. Symbiote monarch," Peter added silently. "And more. There's always more." They burst out a side exit into an alley, the noise of the press conference fading behind them. Soul stretched out before them, massive and complicated and full of threats. Peter looked at Amelia, at Crow, felt Knight's presence in his shadow. "We need to get stronger," he said quietly. "All of us. This," he gestured at the city, at everything it represented, "this is just the beginning." Amelia took his hand. "We'll get stronger together." Crow cracked his knuckles. "I want to fight something bigger than practice drones." "Meat," Venom added. "We want meat." Peter laughed, a real laugh, startled out of him by the absurdity of it all. "Fine. Meat first. Training after. There's a barbecue place Crow spotted on the way here." They walked into the Seoul afternoon, 3 figures moving against the crowd, unnoticed among the millions. But the world was watching. And somewhere, in the shadows between worlds, something ancient stirred. "Interesting," it whispered. "Very interesting." Chapter 11, Symbiote Monarch. The gate pulsed before him, a swirling vortex of crimson and obsidian that looked nothing like the blue portals he'd seen scattered across Seoul. This one was different. Wrong. The air around it hummed with a frequency that made his teeth ache and his shadows stir with unease. "Dangerous," Venom whispered. "But familiar." Familiar how? Like home. Like before. Like him. Peter stood at the gate's threshold, alone. Behind him, at a safe distance, Amelia watched with worried eyes. Crow stood beside her, tail rigid, ears flat against his head. Knight had retreated fully into Peter's shadow, the familiar's presence a warm weight against his consciousness. "Are you sure about this?" Amelia called out, her voice carrying across the distance. "Peter, that gate isn't normal. The readings." "I know." He didn't turn around. Couldn't. If he saw her face, saw the fear in her eyes, he might hesitate. And hesitation against what waited inside would mean death. "I need to do this alone." "You don't have to." "I need to." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Amelia's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. She'd learned, in the weeks since they'd met, when to push and when to stand back. This was a standing back moment. "Then come back," she said quietly. "Promise me." Peter glanced over his shoulder, mask hiding his expression but not the warmth in his eyes. "I always come back." He stepped through the gate. The alien world. The other side was wrong. Peter had walked through gates before, had explored dungeons and battlefields and places that existed between worlds. But this was something else entirely. The sky, if it could be called that, was a churning mass of living darkness, shot through with veins of crimson lightning that never touched the ground. The earth beneath his feet was not earth at all but something organic, pulsing, breathing. Structures rose in the distance, twisted spires of black metal and living flesh, architecture that offended the very concept of geometry. And everywhere, were the symbiotes. They moved in the shadows, crawled along the structures, watched from every angle with gleaming white eyes. Some were small, no larger than dogs, while others towered like buildings, their forms constantly shifting, never quite solid. "They know us," Venom said, and there was something like awe in its voice. "They feel us." "What are they?" "Children. Distant children. Kin." Peter's hand drifted to his katana. "Then why do they look like they want to kill me?" As if in answer, the nearest symbiote surged forward. Slaughter. The first wave died before it touched him. Peter moved, not with the clumsy heroics of his past, but with the precision of an assassin who'd honed his craft across dimensions. His katana sang, cleaving through the first symbiote. The second fell to a tendril of shadow that erupted from the ground. The third, fourth, fifth, dead before they could react. Level up. The notification flashed in his vision, cold and clinical. He ignored it. More symbiotes poured from the spires, a flood of living darkness, their forms shifting from quadrupedal to humanoid to something entirely alien. Peter met them head-on, his blade dancing, Venom's power augmenting every strike. Level up, level up, level up. His stats climbed, his abilities sharpened, the symbiotes kept coming. A massive creature, some kind of corrupted celestial, its form twisted and wrong, lunged at him. Peter didn't dodge. He stepped into the attack, his katana plunging into its chest, light and darkness erupting from the wound in equal measure. The creature screamed, a sound that shattered the nearby spires. Peter ripped his blade free and moved on. Level 100, level 500, level 1000. The numbers blurred, the kills mounted, and somewhere, deep within this nightmare realm, something ancient stirred. Awake, it whispered. Awake at last. The throne room. The path led upward, through twisted corridors, across bridges of solidified shadow, past the corpses of thousands of symbiotes. Peter didn't stop, couldn't stop. The power flowing through him was intoxicating, the constant leveling a rush unlike anything he'd experienced. Level 5000, level 7500. He entered a chamber that dwarfed anything he'd seen before. It was a throne room, vast and terrible, its ceiling lost in impenetrable darkness. Pillars of obsidian lined the walls, each one wrapped in living symbiotes that watched with hungry eyes. And at the chamber's far end, upon a throne made of fused celestial bodies and crystallized darkness, sat a figure. Null, the god of symbiotes, the king in black, the dark heart from which all symbiotes had sprung. He was immense, easily 12 feet tall, his body a fusion of pale flesh and living darkness. His eyes burned with ancient malice, and in his hand he held a blade that seemed to drink the light around it. All black, Venom whispered with reverence. The Necrosword. Peter stopped in the center of the chamber, katana raised, shadows coiling around his feet. So, he said, his voice steady despite the weight of the presence before him. You're the one who's been pulling the strings. Null's lips curled into something that might have been a smile. Strings. No, little spider. I am no puppeteer. I am the darkness from which all things spring and to which all things return. He rose from his throne, the Necrosword humming with power. And you are something I have not seen in eons. Flattering. You carry my essence, my power, my legacy. Null descended the steps, each footfall sending ripples through the chamber's floor. But you also carry something else. Light, hope, concepts that should be anathema to my kind. His eyes narrowed. You are an anomaly. Peter settled into a fighting stance. I'm a lot of things. Indeed. Null raised the Necrosword. Let us see what you truly are. Clash of monarchs. The first strike shattered the ground between them. Peter's katana met the Necrosword in a shower of sparks, black and white and crimson, light and darkness colliding in ways that defied physics. The impact sent shockwaves through the chamber, cracking pillars, sending symbiotes scattering. He's strong, Venom warned. So am I. They fought. Null was ancient, experienced, his every move honed across millennia of combat. His blade moved like liquid shadow, impossible to predict, impossible to block. But Peter adapted. His assassin skills, honed through countless battles, allowed him to read Null's movements before they happened. His body responded faster than thought, dodging strikes that should have landed, countering with attacks that forced even the Dark God to defend. Learning, Venom observed with satisfaction. We're learning. Shut up and fight. Peter feinted left, struck right. Null blocked, countered with a sweep of the Necrosword that would have bisected a lesser opponent. Peter dropped into a roll, came up behind Null, and level 9000. The notification flashed. Peter ignored it, focusing entirely on the battle. Null turned, surprise flickering across his features. You grow stronger with every exchange. How? I level up. That is, not possible. Not against me. Peter's lips curved beneath his mask. I'm not from around here. Eclipse. The battle raged for what felt like hours. They clashed across the throne room, blades singing, darkness exploding, light piercing through the gloom. Null hurled beams of dark red energy, Peter countered with blasts of balanced light and shadow. The symbiotes watched, their countless eyes tracking every move, every strike, every near miss. Level 9500. Level 9800. Level 9900. Peter was learning faster than Null could adapt. Every move the Dark God made, Peter absorbed, analyzed, and incorporated. His katana moved with increasing precision, his shadow clones confusing Null's senses, his light-darkness attacks exploiting gaps in the ancient god's defenses. "You cannot defeat me," Null snarled, his blade carving an arc of darkness. "I am primordial. I am eternal. I am." Beaten, Peter moved. He split into a dozen shadow clones, each one striking from a different angle. Null's necrosword cut through 3, 4, 5, but the sixth found its mark. Peter's katana sliced across Null's chest, leaving a wound that bled not blood but light. Null stared down at the wound, confusion and wonder warring on his features. "Light, inside me, how?" "I'm an eclipse," Peter said, and the power surged. Light and darkness erupted from his body in equal measure, not fighting each other, but dancing, weaving, becoming. His katana transformed, the blade now a fusion of both forces, glowing with the impossible harmony of balanced opposites. Null raised the necrosword to block. Peter's blade passed through it like it wasn't there. Through Null. From chest to spine, a perfect strike that split the dark god in two. Null's eyes widened. His mouth opened, whether to curse or praise, Peter never knew. The king in black fell, his body dissolving into shadow, his essence dispersing into the chamber's darkness. And somewhere, in the space between heartbeats, a new power awakened. Symbiote Monarch. You have defeated Null, the god of symbiotes. Title acquired, Symbiote Monarch. You now hold absolute authority over the symbiote race. New abilities unlocked. Symbiote summoning, hive mind control, necrosword manifestation. Level, 10,000. Level cap removed. Continue ascension. Peter stood in the center of the chamber, breathing hard, his katana smoking where it had cut through a god. Around him, the symbiotes, thousands of them, tens of thousands, a legion, bowed their heads. Their new king had arrived. Venom surged from Peter's body, not as a separate entity but as an extension, a crown of living darkness settling upon his brow. His suit transformed, shifting from simple tactical black to something that defied description. Light and dark intertwined across his armor, forming patterns that hurt to look at, that spoke of balance and eclipse and the space between extremes. A symbol emerged on his chest. Not a spider, but a sun divided by a moon, light and dark in eternal embrace. The eclipse, Venom whispered. That is what we are now. Peter raised his hand, and the symbiotes roared. Return. The gate spat him out hours later, or maybe minutes. Time was difficult to measure when you'd killed a god. Amelia was waiting exactly where he'd left her, Crow beside her, both of them armed and ready. When Peter emerged, they tensed, then relaxed as they recognized him. Despite the new armor, despite the crown of living darkness, despite the power radiating from him in waves that made the air shimmer. Peter. Amelia's voice was careful. What happened in there? He looked at her, really looked, and for the first time since the Civil War, he felt something other than cold. Hope, he realized. That's what this is. I became what I was always meant to be, he said quietly. Not Spider-Man, not a hero, but something new. He extended his hand, and a symbiote formed in his palm. Not Venom, but a new creation, obedient to his will. The symbiote monarch. Crow's tail twitched. That sounds significant. It is. Peter dismissed the symbiote and looked toward the distant skyline of Seoul. Somewhere out there, Sung Jinwoo was walking his own path, commanding his own shadows. Two monarchs, born from different worlds, united by circumstance. The shadow monarch and the symbiote monarch, Peter murmured. This world isn't ready for either of us. Amelia took his hand. Then we'll make it ready. Peter smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine, utterly at odds with the darkness that surrounded him. Yeah, he said, I think we will. Chapter 12. Sparring with the Japanese S ranks. Weeks passed. Seoul settled into a rhythm, gates opening, hunters responding, monsters dying. Peter fell into the pattern like he'd been born to it. Raid, kill, level, return, repeat. But he wasn't the same hunter who'd stumbled through the Red Gate weeks ago. The symbiote monarch had evolved. The new children. Peter stood in the training yard behind his apartment, a converted parking lot he'd reinforced with enough magical wards to survive a small explosion. Amelia watched from a bench, crossbow across her lap. Crow sharpened his claws on a whetstone. Night circled overhead, a shadow against the pre-dawn sky. Show me, Peter commanded. Two figures emerged from his shadow. The first was massive, easily 7 feet of corded muscle and living carapace. Its body was a fusion of red, green, and black, patterns shifting across its surface like oil on water. Its eyes glowed a sickly yellow, and when it breathed, the air around it withered. Blight, Venom introduced. Plague Bringer. Corruptor. Our Fist. The second was leaner, more elegant. Black and purple intertwined with veins of green, its form constantly shifting, never quite solid. It moved like smoke, like shadow, like something that had never known the concept of solid. Its eyes were white, not the symbiote standard, but pure, empty, hungry. Plague, Venom continued. Silent Killer. Unmaker. Our Whisper. Peter studied his creations. Two symbiotes, born from his will, shaped by his power. Not mindless beasts, thinking beings, intelligent and aware, bound to him absolutely. You know your purpose, Peter said. Blight's jaw cracked open, revealing rows of needled teeth. Serve, kill, protect. Plague didn't speak, simply inclined its form, a gesture that somehow conveyed absolute loyalty. Good. Peter dismissed them, and they melted back into his shadow. We have work to do. Amelia rose, approaching slowly. They're intimidating. They're necessary. Peter turned to face her, his expression softening slightly. The threats we're facing, they're not like anything I dealt with before. Not as Spider-Man, not even as the Shadow Assassin. He glanced at the sky, where the first hints of dawn were painting the clouds gold. I need every weapon I can get. And the symbiotes are weapons. They're family. The word came out before he could stop it. He blinked, surprised by his own honesty. Venom, Blight, Plague, they're part of me now. Part of what I am. Amelia smiled, that warm, knowing smile that made his chest ache. Then we're family too. All of us. She gestured at Crow, at night circling above. You're not alone anymore, Peter. You don't have to be. He didn't answer. Couldn't. Just pulled her close and held on. The evaluation. The Korean Hunters Association training grounds were massive, a complex of indoor and outdoor facilities designed to push hunters to their limits and beyond. Peter had been here before, during his registration. Today was different. Today, the Japanese S ranks were visiting. They want to evaluate our capabilities, Chairman Go-Gun he had explained in his office, his aged face grave. The Jeju Island situation grows worse by the day. The ants are evolving. If we don't act soon. He'd let the sentence hang. Everyone knew what it meant. Jeju Island had fallen years ago, overrun by magic beasts that bred faster than they could be killed. The ants there were different, smarter, stronger, organized. They'd already killed hundreds of hunters. If we're going to mount a raid, Go continued, we need every S rank working together. Korean and Japanese both. His gaze shifted to Peter. That includes you, Shadow Assassin. Peter had said nothing, just nodded and left. Now he stood in the training yard, Amelia and Crow flanking him, Night perched on his shoulder. Around them, Korean hunters stretched and warmed up, familiar faces, unfamiliar ones. Baek Yun-ho, the Beastman S rank, cracking his knuckles. Choi Jong-in, the mage, his staff humming with power. Cha Hae-in, the duelist, her blade gleaming. And across the yard, the Japanese delegation. Matsumoto Shigeo led them, a veteran S rank with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. Goto Ryuji stood at his shoulder, younger, cockier, arrogance radiating from him like heat from a furnace. Behind them, the others, Raiji Sugimoto, Kanae Tawada, Akari Shimizu, a dozen more. Peter felt their gazes sweep across him. Assess. Dismiss. Reassess. They don't know what we are, Venom observed. They're about to find out. The incident. Training began without incident. Korean and Japanese hunters paired off, sparring politely, demonstrating techniques without revealing too much. Peter stayed apart, observing, learning. Then John He, a Korean A rank with more ego than skill, made a mistake. He challenged Goto Ryuji. The fight lasted exactly 4 seconds. Goto moved like a blur, his blade appearing at John's throat before the Korean could blink. But he didn't stop there. His free hand lashed out, grabbing John's arm and twisting. John screamed. Goto's eyes were wild, almost feral. Is this the best Korea has to offer? Pathetic. Weak. He twisted harder. Say it. Say you're weak. Stop. Say it. Peter moved. One moment he was 30 feet away. The next, a symbiote tendril had wrapped around Goto's wrist, halting the twist. Goto's head snapped up, eyes blazing, and found Peter's mask inches from his face. Release him, Peter said. His voice was calm, quiet, absolutely terrifying. Goto's grip loosened. John stumbled back, cradling his arm, his face pale with pain and humiliation. The Japanese S-rank straightened, studying Peter with new interest. You're fast. I'm patient. You're not. Peter's tendril retracted, disappearing into his shadow. There's a difference. Goto's lips curled. I've heard about you. The shadow assassin. Korea's 11th S rank. He cracked his neck. They say you killed a god. They say a lot of things. I want to test that. Goto raised his blade. Spar with me. Now. Peter looked at Chairman Go, who watched from the sidelines with an unreadable expression. He looked at the Japanese hunters, who'd stopped their own training to observe. He looked at Amelia, who shook her head slightly. Don't. He looked back at Goto. Fine. The spar. They faced each other across the training yard, 30 feet of open space between them. The other hunters had withdrawn to the edges, giving them room. Even the birds had gone quiet. Careful, Venom warned. He's fast. Experienced. So am I. Peter didn't draw his katana. Didn't summon blight or plague. This was a test, not just of his abilities, but of his control. Goto wanted to see what the symbiote monarch could do. Peter would show him, but not everything. Begin, Chairman Go called. Goto exploded forward. His blade was a blur, not one strike but a dozen, each one aimed at a different vital point. Throat, heart, liver, eyes. The speed was inhuman, the precision absolute. Peter dodged. Not with spider sense, that was a relic of his past, dulled and unreliable in this new world. He dodged with instinct, with the combat reflexes he'd honed across months of life or death battles. His body moved before his mind caught up, flowing between Goto's strikes like water around stones. Impressive, Venom admitted. I'm just getting started. Goto pressed his advantage, driving Peter back across the yard. His blade sang, each strike faster than the last. The watching hunters murmured, they'd never seen anyone match Goto's speed. But Peter wasn't just matching it. He was learning. Every strike, every feint, every shift in Goto's stance, Peter absorbed it all. His assassin skills cataloged patterns, identified weaknesses, calculated optimal counters. The leveling system hummed in the back of his mind, offering enhancements he didn't need. Not yet. Stand still. Goto snarled, his blade whistling past Peter's ear. Why? Peter stopped retreating. Goto's next strike, aimed at Peter's chest, was met by a wall of symbiote flesh. Blight materialized from Peter's shadow, its massive form absorbing the blow like it was nothing. Goto's eyes widened as the symbiote's tendrils lashed out. And were stopped by another set of tendrils. Sung Jinwoo stood at the edge of the yard, his shadow army manifesting around him, one of his knights holding Goto's blade inches from Blight's chest. Enough, Jinwoo said quietly. The yard fell silent. Goto stared at the shadow knight, then at Jinwoo, then at Peter. His expression shifted, surprise, then anger, then something like respect. It seems, he said slowly, I underestimated Korea. Peter dismissed Blight, the symbiote melting back into his shadow. You're not the first. Aftermath. The spar ended without a formal conclusion, neither victor nor vanquished, just resolution. Goto returned to his delegation, subdued but not humiliated. The other Japanese hunters regarded Peter with new eyes, measuring him differently than before. Chairman Go called a meeting in the main hall. Jeju Island, he began without preamble. The ants have evolved again. We've received reports of airborne variants, creatures that can fly, that can carry soldiers behind our lines. He activated a holographic display, showing aerial footage of the island. The ants were everywhere, swarming across the landscape like a living tide. If we don't act soon, they'll spread to the mainland. Millions will die. Peter studied the footage, his expression unreadable behind his mask. We're proposing a Lien A2 Shi, Matsumoto said, switching to Japanese accented Korean. A joint operation. Korea's S ranks and Japan's S ranks, working together to clear the island once and for all. When? Cha Hae-in asked. 6 weeks. Maybe sooner, if the ants accelerate their evolution. The room buzzed with discussion, tactics, logistics, concerns. Peter tuned most of it out, his mind already working through the problem. Giant ants. Evolving quickly. Organized, intelligent, hungry. Like symbiotes, Venom observed. Not like symbiotes. Symbiotes are family. These are just pests. Arrogant. Confident. Chairman Go's voice cut through the noise. Shadow Assassin. What are your thoughts? The room went quiet. Everyone turned to look at Peter. He considered his answer carefully. I'll participate. But not yet. He met Go's gaze. I need to get stronger. 6 weeks of training, gate clearing, preparation. Then I'll be ready. Go nodded slowly. A wise approach. You're young, younger than most S ranks. Time to grow is not something to waste. He glanced at the Japanese delegation. We'll proceed with the planning. Shadow Assassin will join when he's ready. Peter inclined his head. Agreed. He turned and left, Amelia and Crow falling into step behind him. Night swooped down from the rafters, landing on Peter's shoulder with a soft chirp. Outside, the sun was setting, painting Seoul in shades of orange and gold. You're really going to fight those ants? Crow asked, his tail twitching. I'm going to kill every last one of them. Peter's voice was flat, certain. But first, I'm going to become strong enough that none of my people get hurt in the process. Amelia slipped her hand into his. Then we train. Together. Peter squeezed her fingers. Together. They walked into the sunset, 3 figures against the dying light. Behind them, the hunters watched, Korean and Japanese alike, and wondered what kind of storm was brewing. Chapter 13. Jeju Island Raid. The day dawned gray and heavy, clouds hanging low over the Korean coast like a held breath. Peter stood at the bow of the transport ship, watching the horizon where Jeju Island waited, a smudge of darkness against the churning sea. 6 weeks of preparation. 6 weeks of grinding through gates, pushing his limits, mastering powers that would have broken a lesser man. 6 weeks of training alongside Sung Jin-woo, 2 monarchs sharpening each other like blades against stone. Peter flexed his hand, and light and darkness danced across his knuckles. 80%, Venom reported. We've integrated most of Null's power. The remaining 20% is resistant. It'll yield. Everything yields eventually. Behind him, the ship's deck bustled with activity. Korean S ranks checked their gear, their faces grim. Japanese hunters spoke in low voices, their language carrying across the water like a funeral dirge. Amelia stood with Crow near the railing, Night perched on her shoulder, her crossbow gleaming with fresh enchantments. You don't have to come, Peter had told her last night, in the quiet of their apartment. Yes, I do. The ants are monsters, like the ones we've been fighting for months. She'd cupped his face, her elven eyes steady. I'm not a damsel, Peter. I'm not the woman you rescued from that altar. I'm a hunter, your partner, and I'm not letting you face this alone. He hadn't argued, couldn't, because she was right, had been right since the moment they'd met. Amelia Rosaquartz was no one's weakness. She was his strength. Together, Venom had murmured. Always. Now, standing on the ship's bow, Peter watched the island grow larger and felt the weight of what was coming. Brooding. He didn't turn. Jin-woo's presence was unmistakable, the shadow monarch moved like death-given form, quiet and absolute. Thinking, Peter replied. Same thing. A ghost of a smile touched Peter's lips beneath his mask. You sound like her. Amelia is wise. She's something. They stood in silence, 2 monarchs watching the horizon. Jin-woo's shadow stirred behind him, his army, waiting. Peter's own darkness hummed with the presence of blight, plague, and a legion of symbiotes ready to be unleashed. Today changes things, Jin-woo said quietly. Today ends things. Peter's hand drifted to his katana. One way or another. The landing. The beach was a killing field. Ants swarmed across the black sand, not the insects of Peter's world, but monsters. Each one was the size of a dog, their carapaces gleaming like oil, their mandibles dripping with corrosive venom. They moved with intelligence, coordination, purpose. The hunters hit the beach like a hammer. Fire erupted from Choi Jong-in's hands, immolating a wave of ants. Baek Yun-ho transformed, his beastman form tearing through the swarm with claws and fangs. Cha Hae-in's blade flashed, each strike precise, economical, deadly. The Japanese hunters fought alongside them, Matsumoto's lightning, Goto's blade, Raiji's shadow manipulation. For a moment, it seemed almost easy. Then the queen's children arrived. The massacre. Peter felt it before he saw it, a shift in the ant swarm's behavior, a reorganization that spoke of higher intelligence directing their movements. Fall back, he shouted, but his voice was lost in the chaos. The flying ants descended. They came from the clouds, hundreds of them, thousands, their wings humming with a sound like buzzing chainsaws. They ignored the Korean hunters, focusing instead on the Japanese delegation. Goto Ryuji was the first to fall. A flying ant the size of a horse dropped on him from above, its mandibles closing around his torso before he could react. His blade flashed, cutting deep into the creature's head, but there was another behind it, and another, and another. Goto. Matsumoto Shigeo rushed to help, his lightning blasting a path through the swarm. But the ants were too many, too fast. They swarmed the veteran's rank, dragging him down beneath a tide of chitin and fury. Raiji Sugimoto died next, his shadow manipulation useless against enemies that had none. Kanae Tawata fought to the end, her blade taking a dozen ants with her before she fell. Akari Shimizu. Atsushi Kumamoto. Ippei Izawa. 7's ranks. Dead in minutes. The remaining three, Kenzo Tanaka, and Mari Ishida, fought back to back, desperately holding the line. But even they were faltering, their stamina draining, their hope fading. Peter moved. The symbiote army. His shadow exploded. Blight emerged first, massive, terrible, its red-green-black form crashing into the ant swarm like a meteor. Where it struck, ants withered, their bodies corroding, their chitin cracking. Plague followed, silent and deadly, moving through the swarm like smoke, leaving dead ants in its wake. And behind them, the legion. Symbiotes poured from Peter's shadow, hundreds of them, thousands, each one a living weapon. Some were small and fast, designed for infiltration. Others were massive brutes, their forms built for destruction. All of them were hungry. Kill, Peter commanded. Kill them all. The symbiotes obeyed. The tide of battle turned. The black ant. Jinwoo found it deeper in the island, the ant that led the swarm. Not the queen, she was somewhere below, breeding more horrors, but her champion. Her king. It was massive, easily twice the size of any other ant, its carapace black as obsidian, its eyes burning with crimson intelligence. In its claws, it held the remains of a Japanese hunter, Mari Ishida, her body broken, her blade shattered. Jinwoo's shadow army materialized around him. Iron, tank, Igras. Beru wasn't here yet, but he would be. You, Jinwoo said quietly, are mine. The black ant dropped Mary's body and charged. The battle that followed was brutal. The black ant was faster than anything Jinwoo had faced, stronger, smarter. It adapted to his tactics, countered his shadow soldiers, pushed him back again and again. But Jinwoo was the shadow monarch. And the shadow monarch did not lose. His blade found the ant's throat, not a killing blow, but a claiming. Darkness poured from the wound, binding the creature, changing it. The black ant's eyes flickered, crimson to gold, and its form shifted, becoming something new. Something loyal. Beru, Jinwoo thought. And the ant, no, the shadow, bowed its head. Aftermath. The battle ended as the sun set, painting the island in shades of blood and gold. The ants were dead, every last one of them, from the swarm on the beach to the queen in her deep chambers. The island was clear, liberated. But the cost. 7 Japanese S ranks, dozens of Korean A ranks and B ranks, hundreds of support personnel. The numbers blurred together, a litany of loss that would echo for years. Peter stood on the beach, watching the waves wash over the black sand. His symbiotes had retreated to his shadow, sated but not satisfied. Amelia stood beside him, her crossbow hanging at her side, her face streaked with ash and something that might have been tears. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she said quietly. It never is. Peter's voice was hollow. War, raids, battles. It's always the same. People die. The rest of us, we keep going. Is that enough? He looked at her, really looked, and saw the weight she was carrying. The lives she'd taken. The friends she'd watched fall. No, he admitted, but it's all we have. New beginnings. Seoul was different when they returned. The successful Jeju Island raid was celebrated as a victory, the news cycles played the footage on repeat, analysts dissected every moment, politicians took credit they hadn't earned. But the hunters knew the truth. Victory had a cost, and the cost was rising. Peter sat in Chairman Go's office 3 days later, the old man's face grave across the desk. The Japanese Hunters Association is in chaos, Go said. 7's ranks gone, their entire command structure, decimated. He sighed, rubbing his temples. We need to reorganize, strengthen our own forces, prepare for whatever comes next. I'm starting a guild. Go's eyebrows rose. A guild. Weaver Industries. Peter's voice was steady. I have the resources, the connections, the power. He leaned forward. And I have people who need a place to belong. Go was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. The association will support this. Officially, at least. His eyes narrowed. But I have to ask, why? You've never seemed interested in organization before. Peter stood, moving to the window. Below, Seoul spread out before him, a city of lights and shadows, of hunters and monsters, of people just trying to survive. Because I'm tired of watching people die, he said finally. Because I have the power to protect them. And because, he paused, something flickering across his masked face. Because hiding in the shadows isn't enough anymore. Go studied him for a long moment. You sound like a hero. Peter turned. His eyes, visible through his mask, were cold. Don't ever call me that. Weaver Industries. The guild hall was an old warehouse in the industrial district, nothing special, at first glance. But Peter had spent weeks renovating, reinforcing, transforming it into something that could withstand the chaos of the new world. Amelia stood in the main hall, looking around with wonder. The walls were lined with monitors displaying gate activity across the city. Training facilities occupied the lower levels. Living quarters, armories, medical bays, all state-of-the-art, all designed by Peter's genius. It's incredible, she breathed. It's necessary. Peter stood beside her, knight on his shoulder. We're going to need every advantage we can get. Crow entered from the training yard, wiping sweat from his brow. The facilities are good. Better than the associations, honestly. His tail twitched. But we need more people. We're recruiting. Peter activated a holographic display, showing potential candidates. Some of the surviving Japanese hunters, Kei, Kenzo, Mari, they've expressed interest. A few Korean A ranks who want something more than the traditional guilds offer. And the others? Amelia asked. Deadpool, Moon Knight, Captain America. Peter's expression flickered. They're scattered, making their own way. But they know they're welcome here. He paused. Their family. Even if their family I didn't ask for. Liar, Venom murmured. You asked. Quietly. In ways you don't admit. Shut up. The coming storm. That night, Peter stood on the roof of the guild hall, looking up at the stars. The sky was clear, unusual for Seoul, where light pollution usually drowned out everything but the brightest constellations. But tonight, the stars were sharp and cold, and Peter could feel something watching from between them. Something's coming, Venom said. Powerful. Dangerous. I know. It feels like us. Like Null. But different. Peter's jaw tightened. The monarchs, the 7 rulers of the gates, the beings who'd reshaped his world. He'd heard whispers about them, legends and rumors, but nothing concrete. Now, he could feel one of them approaching. How long? He asked. Weeks. Maybe less. Then we prepare. And if preparation isn't enough. Peter's hand drifted to his katana. Light and darkness danced across the blade, responding to his will. Then we fight anyway. Chapter 14. The New Guild. Months had passed since Jeju Island. The world had changed, not dramatically, not overnight, but in the quiet ways that mattered. Hunters who'd survived the raid carried new shadows in their eyes. Families who'd lost loved ones held memorial services that blurred together into an endless fog of grief. The news cycles moved on, as they always did, but the people who'd been there, they remembered. Peter stood at the window of his office in the Weaver clan headquarters, looking out at Seoul. The city had grown used to gates, to monsters, to hunters walking among them like celebrities. But beneath the surface, something was shifting. Unease, Venom murmured. The city feels it. They should, Peter replied. Something's coming. Behind him, the office was a testament to his new life. Maps covered the walls, gate locations, monster migration patterns, hunter deployment zones. A workbench held half-finished projects, upgraded crossbow bolts for Amelia, enhanced claws for Crow, communication devices that could function across dimensional boundaries. And everywhere, the Weaver clan insignia, a stylized arachnid, 8 legs spread wide, its body formed from interlocking light and shadow. The symbol of hope. Your hope, Venom corrected. Whether you admit it or not. It's not my hope. It's theirs. Liar. Peter's phone buzzed. Again. He glanced at the screen. 47 unread messages. All from the same contact. Deadpool. Spidey. Bestie. Buddy. Pal. Friend-shaped acquaintance. Deadpool. You're ignoring me, aren't you? Deadpool. I can tell you're ignoring me. The shadows are being very quiet. Suspiciously quiet. Deadpool. Anyway, Moon Knight and I are coming to visit. We have news. Exciting news. Possibly world-ending news. The good kind of world-ending news, though. Deadpool. Okay, there's no good kind of world-ending news, but you know what I mean. Deadpool. We're in Japan right now. There's a meeting. A big meeting. All the guilds are going to be there. Deadpool. You should come. Deadpool. Seriously. Deadpool. I'm not joking. Deadpool. Okay, I'm always joking, but I'm serious about the not joking part. Deadpool. Peter. Deadpool. I know you're reading these. Deadpool. Your symbiote is probably laughing at me right now. Deadpool. Venom, if you're listening, tell him to answer his phone. Peter sighed, setting the phone down. Venom's amusement rippled through their connection. He's persistent, the symbiote observed. He's annoying. Same thing. The decision. Amelia found him still staring out the window an hour later. She moved quietly, elven grace and hunter training combining into something almost supernatural, but Peter always knew when she was near. Her presence was warmth in the cold spaces of his mind. You've been brooding, she said, settling into the chair across from his desk. Thinking. You've been thinking for 3 hours. That's brooding. Peter turned, removing his mask, something he only did in private, only with her. His face was young, younger than his years, but his eyes held ages. Wade wants us to go to Japan. Some kind of guild meeting. Amelia's eyebrows rose. And I don't trust it. Japan's been unstable since Jeju. 7's ranks dead. Their whole hunter structure, thrown into chaos. He ran a hand through his hair. A meeting like this. It's a target. Or an opportunity. For what? Amelia stood, moving to stand beside him at the window. Below, Weaver clan hunters trained in the courtyard, some human, some beast folk, all wearing the arachnid insignia with pride. Crow was down there, putting a group of recruits through their paces, his tail lashing with each correction. For connections, she said. Allies. Information about what's coming. She glanced at him. You've been hiding, Peter. Building your guild, training your people, preparing for a threat you can't even name. But hiding won't make that threat go away. I'm not hiding. You're not living, either. She took his hand. When was the last time you left Seoul? When was the last time you did something that wasn't about training or preparing or surviving? Peter opened his mouth, closed it. That's what I thought. Amelia squeezed his fingers. We'll go to Japan. We'll attend the meeting. We'll see what the other guilds have to say. She smiled, that warm, knowing smile that always seemed to see right through him. And maybe, while we're there, we'll have dinner somewhere nice. Without monsters. Without gates. Just us. Peter looked at her, really looked, and felt something crack in his chest. Something he'd been holding together for too long. Fine, he said. We'll go. The Weaver clan. The guild had grown faster than Peter expected. What started as a handful of misfits and outcasts had become a legitimate organization, one of the fastest growing guilds in Korea, according to the association's quarterly reports. Hunters flocked to the Weaver clan for reasons Peter didn't fully understand. Some came for the reputation. The symbiote monarch was a legend, a figure of fear and awe, and working for him carried a certain cachet. Some came for the resources. Peter's technological innovations, weapons, armor, communication systems, were the best in the industry, and the Weaver clan had exclusive access. Some came for the protection. In a world where gates could open anywhere, anytime, belonging to a powerful guild meant survival. But most came for something else. Something Peter refused to name. Hope, Venom supplied unhelpfully. I told you to stop saying that. It's true whether you acknowledge it or not. The guild's headquarters had expanded from the old warehouse into a campus, training grounds, living quarters, medical facilities, research labs. Peter had poured his fortune into it, the fortune he'd accumulated from gate rewards and monster bounties and the sale of his technological designs. It wasn't about money. He'd never cared about money, not really, not even when he was starving in New York, struggling to pay Aunt May's medical bills. It was about building something. Something that would last. Something that would protect people when the next disaster came. Like the Avengers, Venom said quietly. No. Peter's mental voice was sharp. Nothing like the Avengers. But similar. Similar isn't the same. The message. That night, Peter received a visitor. Moon Knight emerged from the shadows of his office like he belonged there, which, Peter supposed, he kind of did. The vigilante's white costume gleamed in the low light, his crescent-shaped darts glinting at his belt. "Parker," Mark Spector said, his voice carrying the weight of Khonshu's presence. "Moon Knight." Peter didn't look up from the schematics he was reviewing. "Wade said you were in Japan." "We were. We are." Moon Knight moved closer, his footsteps silent. "The meeting is in 3 days. All the major guilds will be there, Korean, Japanese, Chinese, American. Even some European representatives." Peter set down his stylus. "That many? The gate situation is getting worse. New types of monsters. Stronger gates. Higher death rates." Moon Knight's masked face was unreadable. "The hunter associations are scared. They're looking for solutions. And they think a meeting will solve anything. They think coordination might help. Shared intelligence. Joint operations." Moon Knight paused. "They also think you and Jinwoo are the keys to whatever's coming." Peter leaned back in his chair. "The Shadow Monarch and the Symbiote Monarch. The world's new saviors." His voice was bitter. "I've played that role before. It didn't end well. This isn't your world, Parker. And these aren't the people who betrayed you." Moon Knight's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness, Khonshu's power, always watching. "The meeting is an opportunity. Don't waste it." He vanished back into the shadows, leaving Peter alone with his thoughts. Preparations. The next 2 days were chaos. Peter hadn't realized how much he'd built until he had to step away from it. There were schedules to rearrange, missions to reassign, protocols to put in place. Crow handled most of the operational details. The Cat Beastman had a talent for organization that surprised everyone, himself included, but Peter still had to approve everything. "This is ridiculous," Crow muttered, reviewing the 10th stack of paperwork. "We're only going to Japan for a few days. It's not like we're moving there. There's a non-zero chance something goes wrong," Peter said. "I want the guild prepared. There's a non-zero chance something goes wrong every day. That's the definition of our lives." "Exactly." Amelia packed light, a single bag, plus her crossbow and a few changes of clothes. She'd learned, in her months in this world, that Peter's paranoia was usually justified. If something happened in Japan, she wanted to be ready. Night circled overhead, the feline familiar's golden eyes tracking their preparations. He'd grown since they'd arrived in this world, larger, more intelligent, his connection to Peter deepening with each passing day. "You sense it too," Peter thought at him. Night's response was a feeling, agreement, wariness, and something else. Something like anticipation. "Something stirs in Japan," the familiar seemed to say. "Something dark." "I know. And you're going anyway. Amelia wants to see the sights." Night's mental voice was dry. "You're hopeless." Departure. The private jet lifted off from Seoul's Incheon Airport as the sun set, painting the clouds in shades of gold and crimson. Peter sat by the window, watching Korea shrink beneath them. Amelia was across the aisle, reading a book about Japanese culture. She wanted to be prepared. Crow dozed in the back, his tail curled around him like a blanket. "Nervous?" Venom asked. "No. Liar. Fine. Maybe a little." Peter watched the last of the Korean coast disappear beneath the clouds. "Something feels wrong about this trip. Like we're walking into a trap. Then we'll spring the trap and kill whoever said it. It's not that simple." "It can be." Peter didn't answer. Because Venom wasn't entirely wrong, and that was what worried him. The old Peter, the Spider-Man Peter, would have agonized over every life, every consequence, every moral implication. The shadow assassin was simpler. Cleaner. But somewhere beneath the mask and the symbiote and the years of pain, the old Peter was still there. Still caring. Still worrying. That's not a weakness, Venom said softly. It feels like one. Feelings lie. The jet carried them east, toward Japan, toward the meeting, toward whatever waited in the shadows. Peter closed his eyes and prepared for war. Chapter 15. Chaotic Trip in Japan. Tokyo was beautiful. Amelia pressed her face against the taxi window, her elven eyes wide with wonder. Skyscrapers pierced the clouds, their glass surfaces reflecting the morning sun. Neon signs flashed in characters she couldn't read but somehow understood, a side effect of this world's strange magic, she decided. Cherry blossoms drifted through the air, even though it wasn't quite the right season. It's like something from a dream, she breathed. Crow, sitting beside her, nodded slowly. His tail was curled around his leg, nervous habit, and his ears twitched at every new sound. Different from Soul. Older. More. Layered. Layered. Peter asked from the front seat. Like there's history beneath the surface. Things the city doesn't talk about. Peter's eyes met Crow's in the rearview mirror. The cat beast man had always been perceptive, it was why Peter trusted him with training the guild's recruits. If Crow sensed something wrong, something hidden, it was worth paying attention to. He's right, Venom murmured. There's darkness here, old darkness. I feel it. Beside Peter, Moon Knight sat in perfect stillness, his white mask stark against his black suit. He'd insisted on wearing the mask even to the press conference. Khonshu requires it, he'd said, and no one had argued. Deadpool, in contrast, wore a tuxedo with his mask and somehow made it look both ridiculous and somehow appropriate. Why are we at a press conference again? Deadpool asked, checking his reflection in a spoon he'd produced from somewhere. I look fabulous, by the way. Like James Bond if James Bond had a healing factor and a crippling addiction to chimichangas. Because the Japanese Hunter Association requested our presence, Peter said. All the major guilds are sending representatives. We're supposed to discuss international cooperation. Cooperation. Deadpool snorted. That's politician speak for, we want to use your power without admitting we need you. Probably. And we're going along with this because. Peter glanced at Amelia, who was still marveling at the Tokyo skyline. Because some things are bigger than pride. The press conference. The conference hall was packed. Journalists from a dozen countries, cameras broadcasting live to millions of viewers, guild representatives in their formal attire. Peter sat at the main table, flanked by Moon Knight and the empty chair where Deadpool should have been but had somehow vanished. Probably stealing snacks, Venom suggested. Probably. Chairman Go-Gun he sat at the center, his aged face grave. Beside him, Sung Jin-woo radiated quiet menace, his shadow darker than it should have been in the harsh conference lighting. The Japanese representatives, the survivors of Jeju, sat on the opposite side, their expressions carefully neutral. We gathered today to discuss the future of international hunter cooperation, Go began, his voice carrying through the hall. The Jeju Island raid demonstrated both the potential and the peril of joint operations. 7 S-rank hunters gave their lives to secure that victory. We honor their sacrifice by ensuring that future operations are better coordinated, better supported, and better protected. A journalist raised her hand. Chairman Go, there are rumors that Korea now possesses not 1 but 2 hunters capable of facing S-rank threats alone. The Shadow Monarch and the Symbiote Monarch. Her gaze shifted to Peter and Jin-woo. Is it true that both of them could clear Jeju Island without assistance? Go's expression didn't change. I don't deal in hypotheticals. But, the chairman said no hypotheticals. Peter's voice cut through the room like a blade. His mask hid his expression, but his tone made his position clear. Next question. The journalist sat down, suddenly interested in her notes. The conference continued, diplomatic answers, careful deflections, the slow dance of international politics. Peter answered when necessary, remained silent when possible, and counted the minutes until he could escape. Then the ground shook. The gate. It appeared in the middle of Tokyo, a rift in reality, bleeding crimson light into the afternoon sky. The press conference scattered, journalists and politicians fleeing for cover. Hunters rushed toward the gate, weapons drawn, formations already forming. This isn't right, Moon Knight said, his voice tight. Gates don't just appear in the middle of cities. Not without warning. Someone made it happen, Peter agreed, his katana already in his hand. The question is who, and why? The gate exploded. Giants poured through, not the lumbering brutes of legend, but something worse. These giants moved with purpose, with intelligence, their eyes scanning the city with cold calculation. Each one was 30 feet tall, their skin like weathered stone, their weapons, massive clubs, axes, swords, gleaming with enchantments. Giants. Deadpool appeared from nowhere, guns blazing. Why did it have to be giants? I hate giants. They're so giant. Amelia's crossbow sang, enchanted bolts punching through giant hide. Crow blurred into motion, his claws raking across a giant's ankle, sending it stumbling. Moon Knight's crescent darts flew true, each one finding an eye, a throat, a vulnerable joint. But there were too many. Too many, Venom agreed. We need more. Then give me more. Peter's shadow erupted. Blight emerged first, massive, terrible, its red-green-black form crashing into the nearest giant. The symbiote's tendrils wrapped around the creature's throat, squeezing, and the giant fell with a ground-shaking crash. Plague followed, silent and deadly, flowing through the chaos like smoke, leaving paralyzed giants in its wake. And behind them, the Legion. Symbiotes poured from Peter's shadow, hundreds of them, each one a living weapon. They swarmed the giants, climbing their legs, their torsos, their faces. The giants swatted at them, but the symbiotes were too fast, too numerous, too hungry. Across the battlefield, Jinwoo's shadow army materialized. Soldiers of darkness clashed with giants, their blades finding purchase in enchanted flesh. Igris led the charge, his massive sword cleaving through a giant's knee. Iron followed, his fists crushing stone skin. Two monarchs. Two armies. One battlefield. The Kraken. The giants were falling, slowly, painfully, but falling. Peter could feel the tide turning, could sense the moment when victory would shift from possibility to certainty. Then the ground split open. Tentacles erupted from the fissure, massive, writhing appendages covered in suckers the size of dinner plates. They lashed out, sweeping hunters aside, crushing cars, tearing through buildings like they were made of paper. The Kraken rose. It was immense, larger than any giant, larger than any monster Peter had faced. Its body was a mass of chitin in darkness, its eyes glowing with malevolent intelligence. And its tentacles moved with a purpose that felt almost human. Analyze, Peter commanded. The leveling system responded, flooding his vision with data. Creature analysis, Kraken variant. Classification, artificial construct. Threat level, monarch class. Weakness, unknown. Note, this creature was not born. It was made. Made, Venom echoed. By whom? I intend to find out. The battle. Peter and Jinwoo fought side by side, two monarchs, their powers weaving together in a deadly dance. Jinwoo's shadow soldiers harried the Kraken's tentacles, drawing its attention, creating openings. Peter exploited every gap, his katana trailing light in darkness, each strike carving deep into the creature's flesh. But the wounds healed almost instantly, the Kraken's regeneration outpacing their damage. We need to hit the core. Peter shouted over the chaos. The core. Jinwoo's voice was calm, despite everything. Every artificial construct has a core. Destroy it, destroy the creature. Jinwoo's eyes scanned the Kraken's massive form. Where? Peter's assassin skills flared, analyzing movement patterns, identifying vulnerabilities. The Kraken's tentacles moved to protect its center, not its head, not its heart, but a spot halfway down its body where the chitin seemed slightly thinner. There, Peter said. I'll create an opening. You hit it with everything you have. Jinwoo nodded. Peter moved. Light and darkness exploded from his body, an eclipse made manifest. His symbiote army surged forward, Blight and Plague leading the charge, their combined power tearing through the Kraken's defenses. The creature screamed, a sound that shattered windows for blocks, but Peter didn't stop. He couldn't stop. Now, Venom urged. Now. Peter's katana plunged into the Kraken's core, not destroying it, but cracking it. Weakening it. Jinwoo struck a heartbeat later. His shadow army concentrated into a single point. Every soldier, every knight, every mage, their power focused through the Shadow Monarch's blade. The strike was absolute, final, a blow that would have slain a god. The Kraken's core shattered. The creature dissolved, its body collapsing into ash, its tentacles crumbling to dust. The remaining giants, deprived of their master's direction, fell quickly to the combined forces of the monarch's armies. Silence fell over Tokyo. Aftermath. Peter stood in the center of the destruction, breathing hard. His symbiotes retreated to his shadow, sated but not satisfied. Jinwoo stood across from him, his shadow army fading into the ground. That wasn't natural, Jinwoo said quietly. No. Peter's voice was flat. Someone made that happen. Someone wanted to test us. The question is who, and why. They looked at each other, two monarchs who'd fought together, killed together, survived together. We need to prepare, Peter said. War is coming. Jinwoo nodded. I know. That night, the hotel room was quiet. Amelia slept beside him, her breathing slow and even, her hand resting on his chest. Crow had claimed the couch, Night curled at his feet. Moon Knight and Deadpool were in the adjoining room, their voices a low murmur through the wall. But Peter couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, running through the battle again and again. The giants, the Kraken, the deliberateness of it all. Someone had orchestrated this attack. Someone had wanted to see what the monarchs could do. The monarchs, Venom said. The other 5, you think one of them was behind this? I think we need to find out. Peter closed his eyes. War was coming, a war that would make the Civil War look like a skirmish, a war that would test everything he'd become. The symbiote monarch, the shadow assassin, the man who'd killed a god and claimed his throne. Are we ready? He asked. We have to be. That's not an answer. It's the only one we have. Peter turned his head, looking at Amelia's sleeping face. In the darkness, she looked almost ethereal, a high-elf princess, far from her home, fighting battles she'd never asked for. I won't let anything happen to her, he promised. You can't promise that, Venom replied gently. But you can fight to make it true. That's the same thing. No. Promises are easy. Fighting is hard. The symbiote's presence wrapped around him like a blanket. Rest, host. Tomorrow, we prepare. Peter closed his eyes. War was coming. But for now, there was only darkness, and the woman beside him, and the quiet before the storm. Chapter 16. The Abduction. The Weaver clan headquarters hummed with activity. Hunters moved through the corridors, their footsteps echoing off the reinforced walls. Training sessions continued in the lower levels. Mission briefings happened in the conference rooms. The machine of the guild ran smoothly, efficiently, relentlessly. Peter sat in his office, buried in paperwork. He'd never imagined that being a guild master would involve so much paperwork. Insurance forms, mission reports, equipment requisitions, personnel evaluations, the endless tide of administrative tasks that kept the guild functioning while he was out killing monsters. This is worse than fighting giants, he thought. Giants don't require signatures, Venom agreed. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, expecting a message from Amelia. She'd gone shopping with Crow, exploring Tokyo's famous districts before their return to Seoul. Instead, he saw an unknown number. Unknown. You have something we want. Peter's hand stilled. Unknown. The elf. The cat. The familiar. They're safe. For now. Unknown. Come alone. 47th Street Warehouse, Tokyo Bay. Midnight. Unknown. If you bring your shadow friend, they die. An image appeared. Amelia, bound and gagged, her eyes defiant even through the chains. Crow beside her, tail lashing, ears flat. Knight in a cage, his golden eyes burning with fury. Peter's blood froze. Then it burned. Rage. The glass exploded outward. Peter didn't think, didn't plan, didn't consider consequences. He simply moved, his body responding to a fury so primal that it bypassed all rational thought. Venom surged around him, the symbiote sharing his rage, amplifying it, weaponizing it. We will kill them, Venom snarled. All of them. Yes. Slowly. Yes. Painfully. Yes. The city blurred beneath him as he flew. No, not flew. Launched himself through the air, symbiote wings spreading wide, propelling him toward Tokyo Bay at impossible speed. Buildings rushed past. The water below was a dark mirror. The warehouse grew larger with each passing second. He crashed through the roof like a meteor. The warehouse. Dong-soo and his goons had been waiting. The Korean crime lord had been building power in the shadows for years, using the chaos of the gates to expand his operations. He'd seen the rise of the new monarchs and decided that they were threats to be eliminated, or leveraged. He'd chosen wrong. Peter landed in the center of the warehouse, his impact sending shockwaves through the concrete floor. His mask was gone, replaced by the shifting darkness of Venom's full manifestation. His eyes glowed with crimson light. His body rippled with power. "Shadow Assassin," Dong-su said, stepping forward. "You came. I'm impressed. Most monarchs send minions to do their dirty work." Peter didn't speak. Couldn't. Words were beyond him. "You're wondering why I took your little elf," Dong-su continued, gesturing toward the bound figures behind him. Amelia was struggling against her chains, her eyes blazing. Crow was trying to break free. Night was a golden blur of fury in his cage. "Simple. I want to make a deal. Your power, your guild, your resources, all of it, transferred to me. In exchange, I let your pets live." Peter's jaw tightened. "Kill," Venom urged. "Kill them all." "Not yet. They're using her as a shield. If I attack, she's a high elf. She can survive. I'm not taking that risk." Dong-su smiled, mistaking Peter's silence for weakness. "I thought so. Powerful as you are, you still have weaknesses. Sentiment, attachment, love." He laughed. "Pathetic." Peter moved. "Slaughter." Dong-su's goons died first. They didn't even have time to scream. Blight materialized from Peter's shadow, its massive form tearing through the nearest group like they were paper. Plague followed, silent and deadly, leaving paralyzed bodies in its wake. Venom's tendrils lashed out, each one finding a throat, a heart, a spine. Dong-su's eyes widened. "Wait, we had a deal." Peter didn't answer. Couldn't. His rage had transcended words, become something purer, more primal. Dong-su's men fell around him like wheat before a scythe, and Peter didn't stop, didn't pause, didn't think. A tendril grabbed Dong-su and hurled him across the warehouse. He crashed into a support beam, his body crumpling. Before he could rise, Peter was there, one hand around his throat, the other ripping out his heart. Dong-su stared at the organ in Peter's hand, his expression frozen in disbelief. Then his eyes went dark, and his body slumped. Sung Jin-woo, Peter broadcast through the connection he'd established with the Shadow Monarch. "I have a gift for you." A moment's pause. Then Jin-woo's shadow manifested, claiming Dong-su's soul. "You didn't have to," Jin-woo observed. "He made it personal." "Understood." The healer. Amelia's bonds dissolved as Peter's tendrils sliced through them. She fell into his arms, her body trembling, her face pale but her eyes steady. "I knew you'd come," she whispered. "Always." Peter's voice was rough. "I'll always come." Crow was already free, Night perched on his shoulder, both of them watching the scene with relief and wariness. "Peter, there's something else. Someone else. We sensed them before the attack." Peter's eyes narrowed. "Who?" "A hunter. American. S rank." Crow's tail lashed. "He was here, watching. When Dong-su's men took us, he didn't intervene. Just observed." Peter's rage hadn't cooled. It had simply shifted targets. The American. Thomas Andre was waiting outside the warehouse. The American S rank was massive, easily 7 feet of muscle and arrogance, his eyes gleaming with predatory amusement. He wore a tailored suit that cost more than most people's homes, and his presence radiated power that made the air itself feel heavy. "Shadow Assassin," Thomas said, his voice a deep rumble. "I've heard a lot about you. The boy who killed a god. The boy who commands an army of darkness." He smiled. "You don't look like much." Peter let Amelia go, stepped forward. His body was still wreathed in symbiote flesh, his eyes still burning with crimson light. "You watched," Peter said. "You saw them take my people. And you did nothing." Thomas shrugged. "Not my problem. Americans don't interfere in Korean-Japanese affairs. They're not affairs. They're people. People I don't know. Don't care about." Thomas's smile widened. "But you're interesting. The association wants to know what makes you tick. What your limits are. I volunteered to find out." Peter didn't speak, didn't warn. He just attacked. Clash of power. Thomas was strong, one of the strongest S ranks in the world, his power derived from the American Hunters Association's most advanced augmentation programs. He'd fought gods and monsters, survived battles that would have killed lesser men. But he'd never fought Peter. The symbiote arm that Peter manifested was unlike anything Thomas had seen, living darkness, shot through with veins of light, crackling with power that seemed to bend the space around it. It struck Thomas square in the chest, sending him crashing through a chain-link fence. Thomas rose, laughing. "Is that all you've got?" Peter moved again. They clashed across the warehouse district, their battle tearing up streets and demolishing buildings. Thomas's fists were like hammers, each blow powerful enough to shatter concrete. But Peter was faster, more agile, his movements impossible to predict. And every time Thomas landed a hit, venom absorbed the impact, regenerated the damage, kept Peter fighting. "Impressive," Thomas admitted, wiping blood from his lip. "You're stronger than I expected. You haven't seen anything yet." Peter's light-darkness manipulation flared, an eclipse made manifest. He struck Thomas with a dozen blows, each one faster than the last, each one carrying the weight of a monarch's wrath. Thomas's defenses crumbled. His body gave way. He crashed to the ground, broken and bleeding, his eyes wide with shock. Peter stood over him, tendrils raised for the killing blow. "Peter." Amelia's voice was soft, steady. "Don't." He froze. "He's down. He's beaten. You don't need to kill him." She moved to stand beside him, her hand on his arm. "You're not a murderer. Not like this." Peter looked at her. At the woman who'd been kidnapped, bound, tortured. At the woman who'd nearly died because of his enemies. And he saw the truth in her eyes. "It's not her who needs to heal," Venom observed quietly. "It's you." Peter lowered his tendrils. "Get him to a hospital," he said, his voice flat. "Make sure he survives. Enough to testify about whoever hired Dong Su." He turned away. "I don't want to see his face again." Thomas was taken away by the authorities. Peter stood in the aftermath of destruction, surrounded by the shattered remains of the warehouse district. Justice, he thought. Not revenge. Justice. Progress, Venom agreed. That night, they were back in Seoul. The Weaver clan headquarters was quiet, the guild members giving Peter and his party a wide berth. Amelia sat beside Peter on the rooftop, looking out over the city. Crow had taken night inside to rest. The two of them were alone with the stars and the silence. "You were amazing today," Amelia said quietly. "You could have killed him. You chose not to. He would have killed you if I gave him the chance. But you didn't. You stopped. You chose to be better." She took his hand. "That's what I love about you, Peter. Not the power. Not the darkness. The choice." Peter looked at her. At the woman who'd seen him at his worst and stayed anyway. "I don't know how you do it," he admitted. "See the good in me. When I don't see it myself." Amelia smiled, that warm, knowing smile that made his chest ache. "Because I see the real you. Not the mask. Not the shadows. Just, Peter." He didn't answer. Just pulled her close and held on. The war was coming. The monarchs were gathering. The world was about to change in ways no one could predict. But for now, there was this. There was her. There was hope. And that was enough. Chapter 17. Spending some quality time. The carnival lights painted the night in shades of gold and crimson. Peter stood at the entrance, watching Amelia's face light up as she took in the scene. The Ferris wheel turned slowly against the star-dusted sky. The sounds of laughter and music drifted through the air. The smell of cotton candy and fried dough wrapped around them like a warm blanket. "It's beautiful," Amelia breathed, her elven eyes wide with wonder. "I've never seen anything like this." Peter smiled, a real smile, unguarded and warm. "Welcome to Earth's version of fun." Crow had volunteered to stay behind at the guild headquarters, claiming he needed to review training protocols. Night had curled up on Peter's shoulder, but the familiar had closed his eyes, pretending to sleep. Even Venom was quiet, giving them space. This was their time. The carnival. They moved through the carnival like any other couple, hand in hand, laughing at the games, sharing food, stealing glances when they thought the other wasn't looking. Amelia proved to be surprisingly good at the ring toss, winning a stuffed bear that she immediately named Sir Fluffington III. Sir Fluffington. Peter raised an eyebrow. What happened to the first two? Tragic accidents involving a dragon and a very determined squirrel. She hugged the bear to her chest. But Sir Fluffington III will survive. I'll make sure of it. Peter laughed, a sound that surprised him. He hadn't laughed like this in years. Not since before the Civil War. Not since before everything fell apart. "You deserve this," Venom said softly. "I know. Do you?" Peter didn't answer. But he squeezed Amelia's hand a little tighter. They played more games, Peter winning a giant stuffed tiger for Crow. He'll appreciate the irony. Amelia absolutely destroying a shooting gallery with her elven accuracy. That's not fair, you have supernatural aim. Neither do you, and you're still losing. They ate cotton candy and fried dough and something called churros, that Amelia declared the greatest invention in human history. By the time they reached the Ferris wheel, the sun was beginning to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. The Ferris wheel. They sat in the carriage, rising slowly above the carnival, above the city, above the world. Sir Fluffington III sat between them, his beady eyes watching the sunset. Amelia leaned against Peter's shoulder, her warmth seeping through his jacket. This is perfect, she murmured. I never thought I'd have something like this. Neither did I. Peter's voice was quiet. After everything that happened, I thought I'd never feel this way again. Happy. Content. Like the world wasn't constantly trying to tear me apart. Amelia looked up at him, her eyes soft. You deserve happiness, Peter. You've earned it. Have I? Yes. She reached up, cupping his face. You've sacrificed everything, your home, your identity, your peace of mind. You've fought gods and monsters and survived. You've built something new, something good. She smiled. You deserve to be happy. Peter didn't have words, so he just leaned in and kissed her. The Ferris wheel reached its peak, the world spread out beneath them like a promise. And for one perfect moment, there was no war. No monarchs. No gates. Just two people, together, against the sunset. The harbor. After the carnival, they walked to the harbor. The water was calm, reflecting the lights of the city. Boats bobbed gently at their moorings. The air smelled of salt and freedom. They found a bench overlooking the bay and sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. I've been thinking, Amelia said finally. About what happens next. About the war that's coming. Peter tensed. You don't have to think about that. Not tonight. I want to. She took his hand. I want to understand what I'm fighting for. Why I'm willing to risk everything. And what did you decide? Amelia was quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to face him, her eyes fierce and certain. I'm fighting for this, she said. For nights like this. For sunsets and carnivals and churros. For the chance to build something beautiful in the middle of all this chaos. She squeezed his hand. I'm fighting for us. Peter felt something crack in his chest, the last wall he'd built around his heart, crumbling to dust. Amelia, I know the other monarchs are waiting. I know the war is coming. But I also know that I'm not afraid. She smiled. Because I have you. And you have me. And together, we can face anything. Peter pulled her close, burying his face in her hair. I don't deserve you. Stop saying that. It's true. It's not. She pulled back, meeting his eyes. You're not the same person who stumbled through that gate, Peter. You've grown. You've changed. You've become someone who deserves happiness, who deserves love, who deserves me. She kissed him softly. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that to you. The sunset. They watched the sun sink below the horizon, painting the world in shades of gold and crimson. Peter thought about everything that had led him here. Uncle Ben's words. The Civil War. The betrayal, the loss, the pain. The long, dark road that had brought him to this moment, this place, this woman. I'm light in darkness, he thought. I'm the balance of both. I'm an eclipse. But standing here, with Amelia's hand in his, he realized something else. He was more than just the balance of light and darkness. He was more than a monarch, more than an assassin, more than the sum of his power. He was Peter Parker, the kid who'd been bitten by a spider. The hero who'd fallen. The man who'd risen again. And for the first time in years, he was proud of who he'd become. The promise. Later, they walked back through the city, hand in hand. The other monarchs, Amelia said quietly. How much time do we have? Peter looked up at the sky. Not long. Weeks, maybe. Months if we're lucky. And what happens when they come? Peter stopped, turning to face her. I'm going to fight them. All of them, if I have to. And I'm going to win. He cupped her face. Because I have something to protect now. Something worth fighting for. Amelia's eyes glistened. Peter, I'm not going to make promises I can't keep, he continued. I can't promise that I'll survive. I can't promise that it won't be hard. But I can promise this, he leaned in, pressing his forehead to hers, I will fight with everything I have. For you. For us. For the life we're building together. Amelia kissed him, a kiss that tasted of salt and tears and hope. That's all I ask, she whispered. That's all I'll ever ask. That night, they returned to the guild headquarters late, exhausted but happy. Crow was waiting in the common room, Knight on his shoulder. He took one look at their expressions and nodded approvingly. Good, he said. You needed that. We did. Peter looked at Amelia, who was still clutching Sir Fluffington III. We really did. You're still brooding, Venom observed. I'm not brooding, I'm thinking. You were brooding, now you're thinking about brooding. It's a subtle distinction. Shut up. But Peter smiled as he said it. Because for the first time in years, the darkness inside him didn't feel like a weight. It felt like a promise. Preparations. The next morning, Peter woke early. Amelia was still asleep, her hair spread across the pillow, Sir Fluffington III tucked under her arm. Peter watched her for a moment, memorizing the curve of her smile, the softness of her breathing. Then he rose and began to prepare. The other monarchs were coming. The war was approaching, and when it arrived, he would be ready. We will fight, Venom said. We will win, and after. Peter looked back at Amelia. At the woman who'd given him hope. After, he said quietly, we live. The eclipse had risen. The war was coming, and Peter Parker was ready. Chapter 18, Battle of Monarchs. The sky split open. 3 figures descended from the rift, not flying, but materializing, their presence bending reality around them. The air grew cold. The ground trembled. Shadows lengthened and writhed as if terrified of their own existence. Peter stood at the center of the Weaver clan training grounds, his guild members evacuated to safety. Beside him, Sung Jinwoo emerged from his own shadow, his army already manifesting behind him. They came early, Jinwoo observed, his voice calm despite the looming threat. Monarchs don't follow schedules. Peter's katana materialized in his hand, light and darkness dancing along its edge. They just come to destroy. The 3 monarchs landed in formation. The beast monarch was a towering figure of muscle and fury, his body a fusion of every predator that had ever existed, claws like sabers, fangs like serpents, eyes that burned with primal hunger. He radiated savagery, the raw instinct to hunt and kill and consume. The plague monarch was a woman of terrible beauty, her skin pale as death, her eyes weeping dark ichor. A crown of diseased thorns adorned her brow, and where she walked, the ground withered and died. She carried a scepter of bone, topped with a heart that still beat, a heart that belonged to someone she'd consumed. The frost monarch was cold, so cold that his presence alone turned the air to ice. His form was crystalline, beautiful and terrible, and he moved like a blizzard given flesh. His eyes were chips of frozen starlight, and his voice was the sound of glaciers grinding against mountains. 2 monarchs, the beast monarch rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. The shadow and the symbiote. The usurpers who killed their predecessors. Usurpers. Peter's voice was flat. We killed gods who deserved to die. That's not usurpation. That's justice. Justice is a mortal concept. The plague monarch smiled, her teeth black and rotting. We are beyond such petty distinctions. The frost monarch said nothing. Simply raised his hand. And the battle began. The armies clash. Jinwoo's shadow army surged forward, knights and soldiers and mages, their forms flickering between solid and spectral. Beru led the charge, the former Ant King's speed and power unmatched. Igris followed, his massive sword cleaving through the undead soldiers that the plague monarch summoned. Peter's symbiote army answered the call. Blight erupted from his shadow, massive and terrible, its red-green-black form crashing into the beast monarch's forces. Plague followed, not the monarch, but Peter's own creation, silent and deadly, leaving paralyzed enemies in its wake. The Legion poured forth, thousands of symbiotes, each one a living weapon, each one hungry. The battlefield became chaos. Peter versus the Frost and Plague monarchs. Peter moved like a shadow-given form, his katana singing through the air. The Frost monarch's ice spikes exploded around him, each one aimed with lethal precision. Peter dodged, weaved, flowed through the attacks like water around stones. Your movements are predictable, the Frost monarch observed, his voice like cracking ice. You rely on speed. But speed means nothing when the ground itself is your enemy. The earth beneath Peter's feet froze solid, ice creeping up his legs, threatening to trap him. Peter's response was instant. light and darkness erupted from his body, shattering the ice, propelling him forward. Predictable. Peter's blade found the Frost Monarch's guard. I'm just getting started. The Plague Monarch intervened, her scepter swinging. A wave of diseased energy washed over Peter, and for a moment, his vision swam. He felt the corruption trying to take hold, trying to rot him from the inside. Anti-venom, he commanded. The symbiote responded instantly, a surge of cleansing power, a flash of white light. The plague's hold shattered, and Peter's eyes blazed with renewed fury. Your plague is useless against me. The Plague Monarch's smile faltered. Peter moved again, not with speed, but with precision. His tendrils lashed out, each one coated with anti-venom, each one finding its mark. The Plague Monarch screamed as the cleansing power burned through her, undoing centuries of accumulated corruption. Impossible, she shrieked. I am eternal. I am. Peter's blade took her head. The Plague Monarch's body crumbled to dust, her essence dissipating into the air. The crown of thorns clattered to the ground, its dark power fading. The Frost Monarch stared at the remains of his ally. You will pay for that, usurper. Come get me. The Frost Monarch's final stand. The Frost Monarch was ancient, powerful, his magic honed across millennia. He unleashed a blizzard so intense that it threatened to freeze the very air in Peter's lungs. Ice spikes erupted from the ground, from the sky, from everywhere. Peter was faster. He moved through the storm like a ghost, his body dancing between attacks. His light-darkness manipulation created shields, weapons, distractions. He was learning, adapting, growing stronger with every exchange. Level up, the system announced. Level up, level up. But the Frost Monarch was relentless. His attacks came faster, harder, more desperate. And then, an opening. Peter's blade found the Frost Monarch's chest, piercing the crystalline armor, striking the heart within. The Frost Monarch gasped, his eyes widening with shock. How did you? Eclipses, Peter said quietly, are unpredictable. He twisted the blade. The Frost Monarch shattered like glass, his form dissolving into 1,000 glittering shards. Jin Wu's battle. Across the battlefield, Jin Wu faced the Beast Monarch alone. The Shadow Monarch's army had been depleted, not destroyed, but scattered, forced to regroup. The Beast Monarch was too fast, too strong, his attacks too savage. Even Beru struggled to keep up. You are strong, the Beast Monarch admitted, his claws raking across Jin Wu's armor. But strength is not enough. You lack the instinct, the hunger, the will to do whatever it takes to survive. Jin Wu's response was simple, I have survived everything this world has thrown at me. The Beast Monarch laughed, and you will die anyway. He lunged, and Jin Wu was there to meet him. Their battle was brutal, primal, a clash of two apex predators. Jin Wu's blade found the Beast Monarch's flesh again and again, but the creature's regeneration was almost instantaneous. Every wound healed, every cut closed. Foolish, the Beast Monarch snarled. You cannot kill me. I don't need to kill you. Jin Wu's voice was calm. I just need to hold you. The Beast Monarch's eyes widened. Because Peter was behind him. The symbiote Monarch's blade, coated in anti-venom, crackling with light and darkness, plunged into the Beast Monarch's back. The creature screamed. Jin Wu's shadow army surged forward, claiming the Beast Monarch's soul even as his body crumbled. The aftermath. The battlefield was silent. Peter and Jin Wu stood among the remains of their enemies, both of them breathing hard. Their armies had retreated to the shadows, sated but not satisfied. The ground was scorched, frozen, and corrupted in equal measure. We did it, Peter said quietly. We did. Jin Wu nodded. But this was only 3. There are more. I know. They looked at each other, 2 monarchs, survivors against impossible odds. Get some rest, Jin Wu said. We'll need it. Peter nodded. Recovery. 3 days later, Peter woke in the guild's medical bay. Amelia was beside him, her hand in his, her eyes red from crying. When she saw him open his eyes, she burst into tears. Don't ever do that again, she whispered. Don't you ever. I'm sorry. Peter's voice was hoarse. I didn't mean to scare you. You died, Peter. Your heart stopped. For 3 minutes, you were, she couldn't finish. Peter reached up, cupping her face. But I'm here now. I'm alive. I'm okay. You're not okay. You pushed yourself too hard. Your body will recover. His eyes glowed with newfound power. Because now I've unlocked my full power. The true strength of the symbiote monarch. Amelia stared at him. What does that mean? Peter sat up, and the air around him shimmered. Light and darkness danced across his skin, responding to his will. He felt infinite, like the universe itself was within his reach. It means, he said quietly, that I'm ready for whatever comes next. Training. The weeks that followed were brutal. Peter pushed himself harder than ever before, running gates alone, fighting celestials, pushing his body and his powers to their absolute limits. The leveling system responded, flooding him with new skills, new abilities, new understanding. Level 15,000. Level 20,000. Level 25,000. He fought alongside celestials, ancient beings who recognized him as something new, something powerful. They tested him, challenged him, pushed him to the breaking point. And every time, Peter rose again. Your potential is limitless, one celestial observed. You could become the most powerful being in this universe. I don't want to be the most powerful, Peter replied. I just want to be strong enough to protect the people I love. The celestial nodded. Then you are already on the right path. The gathering storm. Peter stood on the roof of the Weaver clan headquarters, looking out over Seoul. Amelia joined him, wrapping her arms around him from behind. You've been training non-stop. You need to rest. I can't rest. His voice was quiet. The remaining monarchs are coming. I can feel them. They're planning something big. Then we'll face them together. Peter turned, pulling her close. I know. And I'm not afraid. Not anymore. Amelia smiled. Good. Because I'm not either. They stood there, watching the stars, ready for whatever came next. Because they were the eclipse. And the eclipse was coming. Chapter 19. The Final Battle. The alert came at 3:47 a.m. Peter's phone buzzed with an emergency notification, not from the Korean Hunters Association, but from a source he hadn't heard from in months. The old networks. The ones he'd abandoned when he left New York. Emergency. Manhattan under attack. Unknown entity. Casualties mounting. All hunters report to designated gate locations. The message was followed by images, chaos in the streets, buildings crumbling, and at the center of it all, a figure of impossible power. The final monarch had arrived. Peter stared at the screen, his jaw tight. New York, his old home, the city that had turned its back on him, that had called him a menace, that had driven him away. And yet, it's still your city, Venom said quietly. Whether you want it to be or not. I know. You're going to help them. I know. He rose from his bed, already reaching for his gear. Amelia stirred beside him, her eyes fluttering open. Peter, what's wrong? New York, he said, his voice flat. The final monarchs. They're attacking. Amelia was on her feet in an instant, her crossbow materializing in her hand. Then we go. Not you. Peter turned to face her, his expression unreadable behind his mask. This is my fight, my city, my past. Peter, I can't lose you. His voice cracked, just slightly. If something happened to you because of me, because of what I used to be, I couldn't live with myself. Amelia's eyes blazed. And you think I could live with myself if something happened to you? If I stayed behind while you faced the final monarchs alone? Peter opened his mouth, closed it. She's right, Venom observed. And you know it. I hate when you're right. I know. Peter pulled Amelia into his arms, holding her tight. Fine, but you stay close to Crow and Knight. If things get bad, you retreat. Promise me. Promise me you won't do anything stupid. I can't promise that. It's kind of my thing. Amelia laughed, a wet, desperate sound. Then I'll be right there with you. Doing stupid things together. The battlefield. Manhattan was unrecognizable. The skyline that Peter had once swung between was shattered, buildings reduced to rubble, streets cracked and burning, the air thick with smoke and the screams of the dying. At the center of it all, three figures stood amidst the destruction. The final monarchs. The monarch of destruction was a towering figure of raw power, his body crackling with energy that unmade everything it touched. Reality itself seemed to warp around him, bending to his will. The dragon monarch was a creature of ancient fury, wings spread wide, scales gleaming like forged steel. His eyes burned with hatred, and his roar shook the very foundations of the city. And the monarch of iron and blood, a figure of metal and flesh, his body a fusion of technology and organic matter, his eyes glowing with cold intelligence. Peter landed on a shattered skyscraper, Jinwoo beside him. Below, their armies were already materializing, shadows and symbiotes, spreading across the city like a living tide. "Two of them for me," Peter said. "One for you." Jinwoo nodded. "The dragon monarch is mine. Be careful. Always." They moved. Peter versus the monarchs of destruction and iron. The battle was chaos. Peter's symbiote army clashed with the monarch of destruction's forces, creatures of pure annihilation, their touch unmaking everything they encountered. Blight and Plague led the charge, their forms shifting and adapting, buying time for Peter to reach the monarch himself. The monarch of iron and blood intercepted him. "You are the symbiote monarch," the creature observed, his voice a grinding metallic rasp. "The usurper who killed Null. I expected someone grander." Peter's katana flashed. "You expected wrong." Their blades clashed, Peter's light darkness-infused blade against the monarch's weapon, a fusion of technology and dark magic. The impact sent shockwaves through the city, shattering windows, crumbling buildings. "You are strong," the monarch admitted, pressing forward. "But strength alone is not enough. You lack the purpose that drives true power." "Purpose?" Peter's voice was cold. "I have more purpose than you could ever understand." He unleashed his full power. Light and darkness erupted from his body, an eclipse made manifest, blinding and absolute. The monarch of iron and blood screamed as the power washed over him, his metal form cracking, his organic components withering. "I am unmaking you," Peter said, his voice echoing with power. Piece by piece, until there's nothing left. The monarch's form crumbled, but the monarch of destruction was waiting. "You killed my ally," the creature observed, his voice a rumble of pure annihilation. "I will make you pay." Peter barely dodged the wave of destruction that followed. The final stand. The battle raged across Manhattan. Peter and the monarch of destruction clashed again and again, their powers warping reality itself. The city around them crumbled, buildings falling, streets splitting, the very ground beneath them dissolving into nothing. But Peter was faster, smarter, hungrier. "We need to end this," Venom urged. "Now." "I know." Peter's blade found the monarch's heart, not destroying him, but containing him. Light and darkness wrapped around the creature, binding him, imprisoning him in a cage of eclipse energy. "You cannot hold me forever," the monarch snarled. "I don't need forever." Peter's voice was calm. "I just need long enough." The monarch of destruction dissolved, his essence scattered across dimensions. The dragon monarch falls. Across the city, Jinwoo faced the dragon monarch alone. The creature was immense, its power beyond anything Jinwoo had faced. But the Shadow Monarch was relentless, his army of shadows fighting alongside him, wearing the dragon down piece by piece. "You are nothing," the dragon monarch snarled, its claws raking across Jinwoo's armor. "A mortal playing at godhood." "I'm not playing," Jinwoo replied. "I am a god." His blade found the dragon's heart. The creature fell. The rulers. The battle was over. Peter stood in the ruins of Manhattan, his symbiote army fading into his shadow. Jinwoo appeared beside him, his shadow army retreating into the ground. They had won. But the cost. The city was in ruins. Thousands were dead. The world would never be the same. And then the rulers arrived. They descended from the sky, beings of pure light, their forms barely comprehensible to mortal minds. At their center, one of them held a golden cup, its surface etched with symbols that predated human existence. "The cup of reincarnation," the lead ruler announced. "A relic of our people. It can reshape reality, create a new timeline, undo the damage that has been done." Peter stared at the cup. A new timeline. What does that mean? The ruler's eyes, if you could call them eyes, met his. "It means you can have the life you always wanted, Peter Parker. A world where the gates never appeared. Where your family is alive. Where you are not Spider-Man, or the Shadow Assassin, or the Symbiote Monarch. Just Peter." Peter's breath caught. "My family. Uncle Ben. Aunt May." Yes. He looked at Amelia. At Crow. At Night. At the family he'd built in this broken world. "What about them?" he asked. "What about the life I've built here?" The ruler was silent for a long moment. "That life will still exist. In a different form. The people you love will be in the new timeline. But they will be different. The experiences that shaped you will not have happened." Peter understood. The new timeline would erase everything, every battle, every loss, every victory. The woman he'd fallen in love with would be a stranger. The friends he'd made would have no memory of him. Peter looked at Amelia. I can't. Amelia stepped forward, taking his hand. Peter, this is what you've always wanted. A world where you don't have to fight. Where your family is safe. Where you can be happy. Without you. His voice cracked. Without Crow. Without Night. Without everything we've built together. Amelia's eyes glistened. I'll be there. Just, different. And you can find me again. You can remind me of who we were. Who we could be. Peter stared at her. You'd trust me to find you in a world where we've never met. Always. Epilogue. Reboot Earth. The morning sun streamed through the window of a modest suburban home in Forest Hills, Queens. Birds chirped in the oak tree outside. The smell of pancakes drifted from the kitchen. And for the first time in his life, across multiple lifetimes, multiple worlds, Peter Parker woke up without a single weight on his shoulders. He stretched, feeling the familiar presence of venom in the back of his mind, not as a symbiote suit, but as something deeper. A connection. A bond. The symbiote monarch's power still resided within him, dormant but ready. Light and darkness, perfectly balanced. Good morning, Venom murmured. Morning, Peter replied, a smile tugging at his lips. He rose from his bed and padded downstairs, where the sounds of domestic bliss greeted him. Mary Parker was at the stove, flipping pancakes with practiced ease. Richard Parker sat at the kitchen table, reading the morning paper, the Daily Bugle. Peter noted with amusement, though Jameson's rants about hunters had replaced his old tirades about Spider-Man. Morning, son, Richard said, looking up with a warm smile. Sleep well. Better than ever, Dad. Peter slid into his seat, accepting a plate of pancakes from his mother. This was his new life. His real life. No spider bite. No great responsibility. No civil war. Just a family that loved him, a world that accepted him, and a future filled with possibility. A new world. Earth Reboot 616 was different from anything Peter had ever known. The gates still existed, that much had been preserved from the old timeline. But in this world, they had appeared gradually, giving humanity time to adapt. Hunters were respected, celebrated, their powers a natural extension of human evolution rather than a chaotic disruption. Elves walked the streets alongside humans. Beastkin with animal ears and tails were common sights. Magic and technology coexisted in a harmony that Peter had never imagined possible. The old prejudices, the old hatreds, the old wars, they simply didn't exist here. No heroes. No villains. Just people, finding their way together. Better than the old world, Venom observed. Much better, Peter agreed. School days. Midtown High School was different too. Peter walked through its halls without the weight of bullying or isolation. He was popular, not in the flashy, superficial way, but genuinely liked. His intelligence was celebrated, his kindness was recognized, and his natural charisma, sharpened across lifetimes, made him someone people wanted to be around. Hey, Pete, Harry Osborn waved from across the courtyard. You coming to the lab later? I've got a new idea for that clean energy project. Wouldn't miss it, Peter called back. Gwen Stacy passed by, offering a friendly smile. Your presentation on renewable energy sources was incredible. The teachers are still talking about it. Peter smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with romance. In this world, Gwen was simply a friend, a brilliant scientist in her own right, whose ambitions rivaled his own. No tragic deaths. No complicated history. Just friendship. Thanks, Gwen. Let me know if you want to collaborate on the next project. She nodded, moving on. Peter watched her go, grateful for the simplicity of it all. Shadow Mirage Industries. The company was his brainchild, a fusion of his old world's technological genius and this world's unique resources. Shadow Mirage Industries had started small, a single lab in a converted warehouse. Now it was one of the fastest growing corporations in the world. Peter stood in the main research facility, surrounded by holographic displays and prototypes that would change the world. Clean energy. Environmental restoration. Technology that could heal the planet rather than exploit it. This is what I was meant to do, he thought. Not fighting. Not killing. Creating. You're still creating, Venom reminded him. Just in a different way. Peter smiled. I know. And it feels amazing. The reunion. He found her at the Hunters Association headquarters, just as he had in the old timeline. Amelia Rosaquartz was exactly as he remembered, beautiful, fierce, her elven heritage on full display. But in this world, she had no memory of their past life. No recollection of the battles they'd fought, the love they'd shared, the sacrifices they'd made. And yet, "I'm sorry," she said, her voice carrying a hint of confusion. "Have we met before? I feel like I know you. Somehow." Peter smiled, stepping forward with his hand extended. "Not in this life, but I'm hoping we can change that. My name is Peter Parker. And I think we're going to be very good friends." Amelia studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled, that same warm, knowing smile that had captured his heart across dimensions. "I'd like that," she said. "I'd like that a lot." The future. Months passed. The world continued to heal. Peter and Amelia grew closer, their connection deepening even without the shared memories of their past lives. There were dates at the carnival, walks along the harbor, quiet evenings spent watching the sunset. No monsters. No wars. Just two people, falling in love all over again. Crow joined them eventually, a cat-beast man with sharp instincts and a sharper tongue. He'd found his way to Shadow Mirage Industries, applying for a position as head of security. Peter recognized him immediately, though he never said a word about their old lives. "Your company is impressive," Crow observed during his interview. "You've built something incredible here." "Thank you," Peter replied. "I had good inspiration." Night was there too, the feline familiar, reincarnated in this new world as a sleek black cat that followed Peter everywhere. He slept at the foot of Peter's bed, his golden eyes watching over his master with ancient wisdom. "You've found peace," Night seemed to say. "That's all I ever wanted for you." Legacy. Years passed. Shadow Mirage Industries became a global force for good, its technologies transforming the world. The gates were managed, the monsters contained, the environment restored. Humanity and its new allies, elves, beastkin, and more, worked together in a harmony that had once seemed impossible. Peter Parker, once Spider-Man, once the Shadow Assassin, once the symbiote monarch, had become something else entirely. A builder, a creator, a father. His children with Amelia, twins, a boy and a girl, grew up surrounded by love and opportunity. They had no idea what their father had been in another life. They only knew that he was brilliant, kind, and always there when they needed him. "The world is beautiful," Peter often told them. "And it's our job to keep it that way." The promise. On a quiet evening, Peter stood on the balcony of his home, looking out at the city that had once rejected him. It was different now, brighter, filled with hope. Amelia joined him, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "What are you thinking about?" Peter leaned into her embrace. "The past. The future. How lucky we are to have this." Amelia kissed his cheek. "We made our own luck, Peter. We always have." He turned, pulling her into a proper embrace. "I love you, you know. In every timeline, every universe, every life." Amelia smiled. "I know. I love you too." They stood together, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The war was over. The monarchs were gone. The world was at peace. And Peter Parker, once broken, had finally found his happiness. "Light in darkness," he murmured. "The balance of both. An eclipse." Amelia tilted her head. "What was that?" Peter smiled. "Nothing. Just remembering who I used to be." "Who were you?" Peter pulled her close, his heart full. "Someone who fought hard to get here. Someone who made mistakes. Someone who learned to hope again." He kissed her forehead. "But most importantly, someone who found the one person who made it all worth it." Amelia's eyes glistened. "Then I'm glad you found me." "I am too." The sun set over the city, painting the world in light and shadow. And Peter Parker, the symbiote monarch of a new world, felt peace for the first time in his life. The end. And this is the end of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Do not forget to leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.